Meeting number 35 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember Green, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, Council is grateful to have Pastor Joseph Stanley of Greater 12th Missionary Baptist Church to pray with us. Pastor, welcome back to Council.
Shall we pray? God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us this far on the way, our Lord and our God, we gather in this space before asking you for anything, thanking you for everything. We thank you, God, for the breath in our bodies, a small portion of health and strength, and the blessing of one more day. Lord, help us to always make the most of the day that you have given us, for we understand that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but you have given us the ability to make a difference today. Oh God, I ask that your Spirit would fall afresh in this place. Bless our city and those whom you have chosen to lead. Give them the wisdom and the strength to lead with grace and compassion, always concerned for the least of these. Let every discussion and decision be in alignment with your will, and help us as we strive to fulfill your word, which tells us that if my people which are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, you'll hear, forgive sin, and heal our land. These and many blessings I ask in the loving, liberating, lasting name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. This week's communication received by the City Clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll go around the dais for any announcements or resolutions from council members, starting with Councilmember Bangston. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla.
Good evening, Council President. I have two announcements and one resolution this evening. So first, 614 Beautiful Grant applications close this Friday, June 28th. So if you have not yet submitted your application, please do so by this Friday. 614 Beautiful empowers our residents to create, innovate, and celebrate their neighborhoods in every corner of our city by providing residents with the tools and resources they need to bring their ideas to life. We're seeing innovative solutions to neighborhood issues, new gathering places, and more public art that celebrates the history and the people of Columbus. 614 is a program aimed at beautifying and unifying Columbus communities through place-based public-facing improvements achievable with $15,000 of project support. Projects like the Iuka and Waldeck Pocket Park, which is currently looking for volunteers. Please check out their Instagram. The downtown public restroom artwork and illuminated passages on the Near East Side are just a few of the examples of things that are the great ideas that have come to life thanks to our residents. For more information about 614 Beautiful, you can check my Instagram page. You can also check out the Neighborhood Design Center's Instagram page. I remember those applications are due this Friday. Secondly, I want to wish everyone a happy Immigrant Heritage Month. The city of Columbus is the 14th largest city in the United States and growing. Currently, 10% of the city's residents are foreign-born, and this number is expected to continue to rise. Columbus is expected to grow by 1 million people by the year 2050, and the leading contributing factor behind our population growth in Central Ohio are immigrants and refugees. Immigrants and refugees are vibrant and vital to the city of Columbus. In 2019, they contributed $353 million to state and local taxes. Immigrants contribute to the economic development of the city, and we have long seen an impact in our historic neighborhoods like German Village, Italian Village, and Hungarian Village. As thousands have resettled and continue to resettle here, they often face barriers or are unable to access resources. Last year, I partnered with OSU College of Social Work to host a series of town halls and speak directly with immigrants, refugees, and migrants in Columbus through our Immigrants Make Columbus research study. We were able to hear directly from residents and their sense of belonging in Columbus. Please join me tomorrow evening to hear the findings of this research at the Fawcett Center from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. We'll have a panel discussion moderated by Dr. Dorothy Hassan with participants from the project Ibrahima Sow, Sumita, I'm going to mess up Sumita's last name, and I love her so much, Melinda Cortez Figaro, and Dr. Barth Shepcon. So I hope folks will join us. Again, we have more information on our social media pages about that. If folks want more information, they can reach out to my office. And next, I have a resolution for presentation today, and as I'm speaking, if I could have our guests come down to the podium. I would like to introduce Resolution 0171X 2024, again, to recognize and celebrate the month of June as Immigrant Heritage Month. Immigrants have and always will be an integral part to the fabric and face of our nation. The Columbus region's immigrant population is a little over 155,000, or about 10% of the 2 million people that live here. That's enough to fill an entire city council district. As Columbus continues to grow, our immigrant population does too. We want to ensure that the community is welcomed, heard, and made to feel at home here. I would like to invite Amelia Sheely, Executive Director of Riverview International Center, up to the podium. And as well, you have your board member here who is no stranger to City Council, so the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla. It's a privilege to be a part of such a welcoming city as Columbus, and to have done this work for New Americans for almost 9 years. And at the same time, we recognize that while there's so much good that we've done, there is so much more to do as an organization, but also as a welcoming city. And we look forward to the work that's ahead for all of us. And thank you again for passing this important resolution.
Absolutely. Mazen, is there anything you'd like to add?
I could just add a few words. Thank you for this resolution. The Riverview International Center really has embodied how the community, the institutions could all come together and put hand to hand and welcome these new Americans coming into the city to help them get into this community, help them start their new lives, and help them achieve more and more for their own families and for the city's well-being. And the Riverview is what does these things. It's like a magic that happens in this small center that we have, and we welcome everyone to come visit the Riverview Center.
Thank you for that invitation. And I also want to point out, similar to this is also Caribbean Heritage Month, and we had the Haitian Community Outreach Network who was here, who was doing concerted work with the folks specifically from the Haitian community that were displaced from Colonial Village. I know that you are neighbors to the Riverview apartment complex where we had a very similar situation. This evening, later, not to bury the lead, but you're going to be back up to talk about how we continue to support the residents that lived there. But I think that this is always an opportunity where we have these months that it is not just celebratory of different communities, different identities, but that this is also an opportunity for us to elevate some of the challenges that we're facing as a community, as a growing community. And housing is certainly one of those challenges for the immigrant, migrant, and refugee population in Columbus. So I just want to say again, thank you for all of your continued support of these communities and your work and your advocacy. Columbus is a belonging place because of organizations like yours. So thank you for your work, and we'll hear from you later on, especially an update on the residents and the work that is being done there. But I want to thank you both for being here. And again, just thank you for your advocacy. Do my colleagues have any additional questions, concerns, or comments?
Thank you.
Great. And with that, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is all for me this evening, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Nancy De Alcar.
Thank you, Council President. I have one resolution tonight, and as I introduce it, if representatives from the Somali Cultural Festival could please come forward. This evening, we're introducing Resolution 0172X-2024 to recognize the Somali Cultural Festival and its founding members. The Somali Cultural Festival was founded by Muhammad Ali and Liban Osman as an event to celebrate and promote Somali culture, heritage, and traditions. The event not only showcases the rich cultural diversity of the Somali people, but also plays a crucial role in fostering understanding and appreciation of the culture in Columbus. The festival has significantly expanded in size and importance within the community, with over 4,000 attendees at last year's event, many of whom visited from neighboring cities and states. The festival is host to numerous activities and programs designed to celebrate Somali culture, such as traditional music and dance performances, cultural exhibits, children's activities, community resource tables, marketplaces, workshops, and lectures. This year's festival will take place on Saturday, June 29th from 3 to 8 p.m. at Innis Park. Last month, my colleagues, Councilmembers Remy and White, joined me in passing legislation designating council funds to help support this impactful community event. Columbus is home to the second largest Somali population in the country, and as such, it is important we take time to uplift and celebrate the community's rich culture and contributions to our vibrant city. Tonight with us is President and Founder Muhammad Ali. Mr. Ali, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening, council members and honored guests. My name is Muhammad Ali, and I'm thrilled to be here today alongside my fellow colleagues. We're here to accept the ceremonial resolution on behalf of the Somali American community. I'm here standing in front of you to talk about an event that is close to the hearts of the Somali community. And the Somali Cultural Festival was established to celebrate and promote the Somali heritage, culture, and traditions within our community. It began about 2 decades ago with a vision of fostering understanding, appreciation of the Somali culture among the Somali diaspora and the wider public. Over the years, the festival has grown significantly, becoming a vibrant annual event that showcases the heritage, the rich culture diversity of the Somali people. This is an annual event that is hosted by the Somali Cultural Festival at the end of July, the weekend of June. So we will be hosting this event on June the 29th on Saturday. It's a Saturday at Ennis Park. It was just a one-day event, but it has grown, and next year we are looking to extend it to maybe a weekend event.
Last year, our festival attracted thousands of attendees. It was a joy to see so many community members, families, students, and local leaders come together to celebrate Somali culture. The increase in attendance each year highlights the growing interest and support for Somali cultural heritage, and we are deeply grateful for this recognition from the City of Columbus. The Somali Cultural Festival offers a variety of activities and programs designed to celebrate Somali culture, from traditional music and dance performances, which I'm a part of the dance performance if anybody's interested, to cultural exhibits displaying Somali art, crafts, and historical artifacts. Our festival provides an immersive cultural experience.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. My name is Anwar Ali. I am one of the choreographers for the Afsi dance team. If you guys have got the great chance to experience here in the council room. The Somali Independence Day Festival features food stalls offering a taste of authentic Somali cuisine with delicious dishes such as sambusas, baris, and mufo, among others. Educational workshops and lectures delve into Somali language, poetry, and storytelling, while the marketplace offers traditional Somali clothing, jewelry, and other cultural items. Additionally, we have interactive and engaging activities for children, making the festival a family-friendly event. We are proud to serve local and regional groups participating in the festival, including Somali community organizations such as Afsi, the dance team that I am so graciously a part of, and our artists, business, and different people of Somali diaspora. The festival serves as a platform for these groups to connect with the wider community and share their cultural heritage.
I would like to thank each and every one of you guys, and I don't want to say a lot, but I want to say all of you guys are invited. Please come enjoy with us, dance with us, have some spicy food. Hey. A lot of new Americans. This too was born here, so we're the not ones. So come enjoy with us. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Lastly, I want to thank the support from the City Council. So we appreciate it. We could have not done this without you. So thank you so much.
That's great.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, hey, hang on a sec. Still get it presented. I have been challenged by Mohammed to try camel's milk.
Oh, yeah.
This weekend, so.
I haven't had it, so.
I don't know. I'm not a milk drinker, so this will be stepping outside of my cultural zone, but I'm really looking forward to attending on Saturday once again. I had a great time last year. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues?
We'll be there.
Hopefully you guys all are there. We're going to have a way more interactive performance this year. We've been working very hard this past month trying to make something very interactive with the crowd. So you guys enjoy. Oh, I mean, I have a lot of numbers. You guys heard me, right? Okay, that's okay. I'm done. Okay, thank you guys. Have a nice day.
Lastly, as we are celebrating the culture, we also want to connect resources to the community. This festival is not just for the Somali community. It's for all of us to learn from each other. So you guys are all welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, hang on just a sec. We got to.
We're in a rush.
So,
I don't know why.
if there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Al, Coward, Dorrance, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted.
Yep.
That is all I have this evening.
Thank you. Press Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to remind folks that this Thursday, we'll be holding our third public hearing on the zoning initiative here at 5:30 in Council Chambers. Members of the zoning team will be in attendance to present a summary of their outreach efforts and to summarize the more than 1,800 formal comments that we received during the 60-day public comment period regarding our efforts to modernize Columbus' zoning code. At that public hearing, we will not be considering any amendments to the proposed zoning code or map. Those changes will be subject of an additional public hearing that we are hoping to announce in the next week or so. Again, that hearing date is this Thursday, June 27th at 5:30 here in Council Chambers. Thanks, Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Green. Councilmember Remy.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. What happened yesterday in the Short North is entirely unacceptable. This council and city have continuously invested in safety enhancements of our streets with 10 officers on that block where the shooting began, cameras everywhere. It's clear police nor the city can do this alone. When people ask, I look a block away at our legislators who have made carrying a gun easier than driving a car. It's the proliferation of guns on our streets that have made incidents like this occurring more often, not only in Columbus, but across the nation. We have been investing tens of millions of dollars in youth programming, investing in special duty officers and technology like cameras in areas across this community, but specifically like the Short North. But we need everyone. There were 2 juveniles that were involved in this incident. This occurred around 2:30 in the morning. We are pleading with our parents to know where your kids are, especially at that time of night. We need faith leaders, community leaders, everyone to help with our youth after dark. I'm calling on every single Columbus resident to look after our children and young people in our community. Teach them de-escalation techniques. Teach them how to work through their issues in a nonviolent, productive way. These interventions save lives. Look, Columbus is a safe city. Our streets are safe overall. Violent crime has fallen in this city more than any other in the United States, but one incident like this can skew those numbers. One thing is certain, we all need to stand together to make sure it is well known that these are our streets and a few lawless individuals will not take these streets away from us. I also want to share that the Columbus Division of Police has an incredible civilian active shooting training that I encourage you to check out. I also want to thank our Columbus Division of Fire. We have the best paramedics in this country, and they did an excellent job saving lives Sunday morning. And without them, things could have gone a lot differently. But I encourage you all to reach out to my office for further information about the civilian active shooting training or any other issue in regards to this. These are our streets. Just remember that, and we're not going to tolerate this anymore. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember White.
Thank you, President Harding. Good evening, everyone. First, I want to remind everyone that the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee will be hosting our second committee hearing tomorrow here in Council Chambers, starting at 3:30. All are welcome to attend. We will discuss the details of the lead service line replacement program and hear about an innovative approach to reducing the amount of trash ending up in our landfills. So please stop by and hear more information about that. Second, I want to take a moment to thank my colleagues, our nonprofit and community partners, and the departments that helped coordinate the response to the extreme heat we have been experiencing over the last week. Because the community pulled together, people survived. While this week should bring a little cooler temps, the strong storms, tornadoes, and higher temperatures are here to stay. This is just the beginning of summer, so there will be more hot days to come. I want residents to know that the administration and council are working to enhance and streamline our heat plans so residents know where they can cool down when temperatures are high or when air quality is bad. Councilmember Favor has done an amazing job working with departments to build a solid infrastructure for extreme cold, and now our focus is shifting to times of high heat. As the chair of the Council's Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, I'm excited to work with her and Councilmember Green on this effort and build on the foundation that currently exists. This is a pivotal moment for our city. The heat dome we experienced last week is a part of a new reality of our changing climate. Columbus must be able to adapt to protect our residents. Next, I had a surprise, but she's too good and kind of ruined it. But I want to invite members of the Public Utilities team to come up to the podium. As they come, I'd like to introduce Resolution 0174X-2024 to celebrate and recognize the numerous contributions of Ann Aubrey to the City of Columbus. A whole note about how she was going to be surprised, and that's right out the window because, again, too good. Deputy Director Aubrey has dedicated 28 years of her life to public service for the City of Columbus, holding roles at both the Department of Public Utilities and the Department of Public Service. Over the years, she has ushered us through natural disasters, the pandemic, and immense expansion throughout our region. I know we have not gotten to work together for very long, but it's been a pleasure and an honor working with you on all things public utilities and sustainability. I'm grateful to have gotten the opportunity to learn from your institutional knowledge and years of experience, and I just want to thank you on the behalf of the city for everything that you have done. If we could just give her a quick round of applause, that would be great. So I know all your colleagues want to celebrate you, and I'm sure you've got some remarks since you knew this was coming, but I want to turn to my council colleagues, see if they have any thoughts or comments they'd like to share briefly.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I'm not surprised that you ruined the surprise, because you're the consummate public employee that knows more than most folks in the room with her. So not surprised that you'd be able to pull that off. I just want to say thank you for so many years of service. It's been an absolute honor to have the opportunity to work with you for as long as I did when I was chairing the Public Utilities Committee. You are the definition of a public servant, and well beyond that, given the many of the, as Councilmember Weich mentioned, many of the issues that you have tackled throughout your career, many of which in the past 5+ years. And we would not be in the position that we would be in without your amount of time and expertise that you've taken to really make sure that the city continues to invest in a way that puts our residents first and make sure that the bread and butter work of government, of clean water coming out of those faucets actually happens. And there's people would have no idea the amount of effort and expertise that goes into accomplishing that. And I just want to say thank you. It's been really a pleasure for me to work with you for all these years, and we'll miss you, but again, wish you well in retirement and congratulations.
Well, I will tell you who is surprised, which is me. No, congratulations, well-deserved, and I think Councilmember Dorans said it best. You are absolutely the definition of a public servant. So now I have to figure out who I work with in utilities, because every time I had an issue, everyone would say, oh, call Ann, call Ann. And so I've been calling Ann since I was a intern in Mayor Coleman's office, all the way to working for Mayor Ginther in his office in that administration, and now even in this position. So you have served this community well, so congratulations. Good luck to you in whatever your next is. And don't get upset if I still call Ann just from time to time until I get who the new person is. But congratulations.
Well, President Harden, Chair White, other members of council, like you said, I've worked with a lot of you in your former roles, whether it was under Mayor Coleman or Mayor Ginther, but a lot of people here. When I started 28 years ago, I worked with a really good group of engineers and mentors, and time flew by. And 16 years in this role, we counted up 9 utility chairs during that time, and 4 directors, and a lot of good times. And so while I'm going to miss the team behind me, I'm ready for the next chapter, and I really appreciate this recognition.
So we couldn't surprise her. You can't surprise Ann Aubrey. But even though her official title is Deputy Director of Operations of the Department of Public Utilities, she's got a lot of other titles. Her unofficial titles are Protector of the Department of Public Utilities, Watchdog for DPU's ratepayers, a champion for the City of Columbus, friend, partner, and mentor to all of us. So we all, I'm kind of speaking for everyone up here and then the other 1,000 Department of Public Utilities employees. If there was a Mount Rushmore for public service, Ann would be on it. If there was a complex project or just something simple, she always knew how to dig in and figure out the best solution for all of us. But maybe above all that, she has always put her service above herself and above her own ego. She's just been such a great partner to all of us. And most of the public doesn't even know who she is, and that's the way she likes it. But I can assure you her public service legacy will live on for generations. So we're so fortunate to have worked with her. We thank you, Ann, and we love you, and we're going to miss you. So thank you.
There was a question on the dais on who was your favorite chair of TPU. I know that answer is me, so we will move on from that one. But seeing no additional comments or questions, I move for passage.
Chair, I would like to add that I think it's really important when we have longtime public servants to slow down in this moment in our history where so many folks question or have distrust of institutions and of government, to behind or all of us that folks see and might have disagreements with us politically or not, to think that folks like Ann Aubrey represent the 9,000 folks who get up every day, who, as Doran said, protect your ability to drink clean water, who do the work without ever asking for any recognition, and do it and give everything that they have to serve our residents. And you specifically are an amazing public servant, but you, even more than that, represent so many others that are doing this work. And every time we have this opportunity to acknowledge someone who has earned their next, it's just really important right now that we slow down to say Ann is special, but she also, there are so many other great leaders out there who in this moment are giving their everything to this city. So thank you for giving your everything to Columbus for so long, and we are very, very, very grateful. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, council member. Are there any announcements from City Attorney's Office, our auditor? Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent portion of the agenda? Hearing none, may we now have a motion to waive the reading of the titles of 30-day legislation? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Will the clerk now read into the record ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance and Governance Committee, Ordinance 1624-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee, Ordinances 1540 and 1807-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Resolution 163X-2024, and Ordinances 1207, 1590, 1598, 1614, 1629, 1630, 1653, 1747-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation and Parks Committee, Ordinances 1368, 1628, 1772, 1840-2024. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, Ordinances 1254 and 1663-2024. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, Ordinances 1466, 1564, 1594, and 1719-2024. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, Ordinances 1599, 1600, 1631, 1720, 1722-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, Ordinances 1491 and 1759-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, Ordinances 1134, 1463, 1493, 1555, 1602, 1640, 1644, 1646, 1647, 1815-2024. Rules and Policy Committee, Ordinance 1730-2024. Zoning Committee, Ordinances 1794, 1795, 1797, 1823, 1824, 1825, 1826, and 1827-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There are no speakers on the first reading portion of the agenda. The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent. Will the clerk now read those into the record?
Resolutions of Expression 173X and 176X-2024. Finance and Governance Committee ordinances 1216, 1348, 1520, 1550, 1652, 1676, 1692, 1697, 1737, 1742, 1749-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee ordinance 1452-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinance 1357, 1359, 1451, 1510, 1522, 1603, and 1721-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, ordinances 1369, 1371, 1372, 1682, 1739, 1779, 1813, 1817, and 1836-2024. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinances 1444, 1639, 1683-2024. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 1547, 1595, 1596, and 1677-2024. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 1561, 1620, 1621, 1641, 1674, 1686-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinances 1532, 1649, 1650, 1658-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 1523, 1610, 1618, 1645-2024. Rules and Policy Committee, appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0 140, 142, 144, 145, 146, 147, 148, and 149-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There are no speakers on the consent portion of the agenda. All right, if there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, may I have a motion of approval? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bankston,
Yes, with the exception of ordinance 1650-2024, from which I'm abstaining.
Ms. Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Ms. Day Akauer, Mr. Dorans, Ms. Green, Mr. Remy, Mr. White, President Harden.
Yes, consent agenda is passed with no exceptions. We'll now proceed with the second reading of 30-day postponed and emergency legislation. First committee to come before council is the Finance and Governance Committee, chaired by Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight in the Finance and Governance Committee, for second reading, we have Resolution 0170X-2024 to adopt the 2025 tax budget and to authorize and direct the city auditor to submit said budget to the county and to declare an emergency. At this time, I move to postpone this ordinance until the July 1st council meeting.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
Postpone.
Thank you. Can my people in the clerk's office, can y'all hear me okay now?
Yes, sir, we can.
They
Thank
keep
you.
getting on me because they say I talk too low, so I'm going to talk louder. Next, we have ordinance 1323-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Technology to enter into contract with vCloud Tech, Inc. for the subscription of Red Sky My E911 and E911 Anywhere services, to authorize the waiver of relevant sections of Section 329 of the Columbus City Code relating to competitive bidding, and to authorize the expenditure of $106,360 from the Department of Technology Information Services Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the Director of the Department of Technology to enter into a contract with vCloud, Inc. for the subscription of Red Sky My E911 and E911 Anywhere services for Columbus City Schools. Since 2017, the Department of Technology has worked with Columbus City Schools to install and maintain their voice-over Internet Protocol phone systems. Federal mandates under the Ray-Baum Act and Carey's Law require that schools have an updated E911 system in place within their voice-over Internet Protocol infrastructure to ensure that 911 call takers can identify the soft phone location of callers. Authorization of this contract will ensure that CCS will remain federally compliant with these mandates. These services are necessary to support daily operation activities for CCS, so emergency consideration is being requested to ensure no service interruption and to establish a purchase order at the earliest possible date. A bid waiver is needed as there is no sufficient time to obtain an award bid from before the current contract expires with the current provider. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 1657-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to establish purchase orders from previously established with Byers Ford, Par Public Safety, and Reichert Properties for any vendor that may win contracts related to these services via competitive bidding, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders for the purchase of related vehicle upfitting, to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to establish purchase orders for additional vehicle upfitting needs accordance with the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code, to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to establish purchase orders for additional vehicle costs, model year changes, or cost increases, to authorize the expenditure of $1 million from the income tax set-aside subfund to appropriate funds as necessary, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes additional citywide vehicle acquisitions on behalf of city departments. Each year, the Fleet Management Division acquires new vehicles in accordance with the operational needs of city agencies. These new vehicles replace existing assets that have aged beyond their useful life. These annual citywide vehicle acquisitions ensure that the city's vehicle fleet is at optimal utilization and in accordance with industry best practices for vehicle life cycles. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have ordinance 1675-2024 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase office supplies, accessories, and papers with Friends Service Co., Inc., High Touch Business Services, LLC, and Key 4 Supplies, Inc., doing business as Key 4 Cleaning Supplies, Inc., to authorize the expenditure of $3 to waive the provisions of competitive bidding and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes a universal term contract with the aforementioned vendors for the citywide purchase of office supplies, cleaning supplies, and equipment, and paper products for use by various city agencies. These supplies will be used for daily office and cleaning-related products to maintain daily operations throughout the city. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Our next ordinance, 1799-2024, is being sponsored by Councilmember Remy, and I will turn the floor over to him for passage.
Thank you very much, Chair Bankston. I'm excited to introduce this next ordinance. This started as a conversation at the National League of Cities. I believe Jason Jenkins was there, and myself, as we were introduced to this organization, Fuse Corporation, who provides fellowship opportunities to cities around the country. So through this unique partnership, the mayor's office and myself are sponsoring the opportunity to work on 3 specific areas and 3 fellows that will serve in the next year in the city of Columbus that will work on housing insecurity, mental health needs, and public safety sensor technology. So I introduced tonight 1799-2024 to authorize the Director of Technology to enter into contract with Fuse Corp., a national nonprofit to provide additional resources to address the issues of housing insecurity, responding to mental health needs, and public safety sensor technology, to authorize the appropriation in City Council's Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, to authorize the expenditure of $60,000 from the General Fund and from the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, and to declare an emergency. Tonight, I'm pleased to be joined virtually by the CEO of Fuse, James Weinberg. I'd like to ask him to share a few words about about your organization and then also the value that this contract will bring to the city of Columbus. Mr. Weinberg?
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, good afternoon, President Harden, members of council, and Councilmember Remy, who helped to connect our organization to the city of Columbus. As the council member said, my name is James Weinberg. I am the CEO of Fuse Corps, a national nonprofit organization that runs an executive fellowship program in local governments. Over the past 12 years, we've worked on over 400 executive fellowships in 58 city and county governments across 26 states, including recent work in other Ohio cities, including Cleveland and Cincinnati. Fuse had the opportunity to make a major investment of its own resources this year in adding one new additional partner city to the community of governments that we work with. This would involve covering the vast majority of the costs of placing 3 executive fellows in one city in exchange for a matching contribution of financial resources from that city. After careful consideration of dozens of cities throughout the country, we ultimately selected the City of Columbus to receive this investment, having been inspired by the innovative leadership demonstrated by council and his office. I wanted to thank Mayor Ginther, Chief Sims, Deputy Chief Williams, and a number of the city's department directors for working with us over the past several months to identify the 3 specific projects that Councilmember Remy mentioned. We look forward to working with all of you. This would be senior executives starting in city government in October of 24, working for 12 months through October of 2025. Happy to answer any questions about the program, but honored for the opportunity to partner with your city.
Thank you so much, Mr. Weinberg. This total investment is close to $600,000, and so we appreciate their commitment to partner with the City of Columbus. So truly excited. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you again, Chair Bangston. Back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Remy, and thank you for your service on the National League of Cities Board. Every time we go, it's an amazing opportunity. As our city continues to grow, National League of Cities is a place where we can learn best practices from cities all around the country of all different sizes. And so the issues that we face as a city aren't unique. And so whenever we can get expertise and make sure that our staff are doing best practices around the country, it's always good for all of our residents. So thank you for your leadership. With that, Council President, may I move to the Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee?
Please.
Thank you. Tonight in the Economic Development and Small Minority Business Committee, we have Ordinance 1541-2024 to authorize the Director of Department of Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Columbus Urban League in support of the Urban Business Connection Program to allow the reimbursement of expenses prior to the approval of the purchase order, to authorize the advancement of funds on a predetermined schedule, and to authorize an appropriation and expenditure within the Job Growth Subfund. Councilman, this ordinance legislates funding for the operating budget amendment supported by my office for the Urban Business Connection Program for a 3rd year. Started as a pilot in 2021, this program aims at closing the resources and opportunity gap for Black-owned businesses in our city. The outcomes have been incredible, and it is one of the most successful programs the city has funded to date, working with our small businesses. This year, 100 Black-owned businesses will gain access to the Columbus Chamber of Commerce membership benefits that will help take their businesses to the next level. And in addition to simply just having access to the membership at the Chamber, there's also additional resources and support that are given to these businesses as well. And as I stated, the outcomes are amazing. So many businesses that have seen themselves grow, add employees, and add to our city's economic base is a win-win for all of us. And so excited to continue to partner with the Columbus Chamber. I want to thank Director Stevens and his team for all of their support around small business. This is one piece of the larger small business agenda puzzle, and so thankful for them for their leadership. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I first move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
Next, I move to amend to emergency.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
And now I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Last but not least, we have Ordinance 1672-2024 to authorize the Director of Department of Development to enter into a grant agreement with Columbus Next Generation Corporation to purchase, renovate, or construct real property assets in targeted central city areas to advance economic and community development initiatives, to authorize the expenditure of $4,445,000 from the Development Taxable Bond Fund to advance funding per a predetermined schedule and to declare an emergency. This ordinance provides capital funds to Columbus Next Gen for the implementation of specific projects through purchasing, renovating, and constructing real property assets in targeted central city areas. Director Stevens, did you want to speak more to this ordinance?
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Banks, and members of council. We continue to work with NextGen Corporation on strategically acquiring sites throughout our city that are to better position them for redevelopment. This is an opportunity we have identified in the Hilltop and hope to mass some property there to get some redevelopment started and additional private investment.
Thank you, Director Stevens. And NextGen is a key partner in many of our neighborhoods. When we think of Mulby Place in Linden, which is the cornerstone to downtown Linden, they were a strategic partner in that. So now 100 seniors have affordable housing in that neighborhood, and it's a beautiful development that will add to that community. If there are seeing no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Public Service Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. It's a busy evening this evening. We have 5 ordinance today in public service and transportation. Ordinance 1551, 2024, to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to appropriate funds received from NP Capital Management Corporation in connection to the roadway, I believe I'm saying this correctly, CERS? C-E-R-E-S, Director, your Ceres Drive, Polaris Parkway to IKEA project to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into the contract with Shelley and Sands Incorporated for the project to authorize the expenditure of up to $1,788,541.59 from the Streets and Highways non-bond fund for the project to refund any unused construction inspection, and administration funds upon a final acceptance of work and to declare an emergency. This contract includes a plan to realign and reconstruct Ceres Drive from its intersection from Polaris Parkway to IKEA Way. The roadway will consist of 3 lanes, including a 2-way left turn lane, except for the section through the conservation easement and over the existing 72-inch storm culvert, where it will narrow into 2 lanes. Ceres, right? Thank you. Yes, that street, thank you, Councilmember, will be constructed with full-depth pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalk, street lighting, storm sewer, and street trees and other work as may be necessary. The estimated notice to proceed date is July 24th, 2024. Director, is there anything you'd like to add to this particular project?
Good evening, President Hardin, Chair Barosa de Padilla, members of council. Nothing to add.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Ordinance 1668, 2024, to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds within the Streets and Highways Bond Fund to appropriate funds within the Federal Transportation Grants Fund to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service to enter into contract with Complete General Construction Company for the intersection Georgesville Road at Hall Road and intersection Bethel Road at Diker Road projects to authorize the expenditure of $3,050,557.30 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund and the Federal Transportation Grants Fund for projects to repay any unused grant funds at the end of the grant period and to declare an emergency. This project includes the construction of right turn lanes on Georgesville Road and Hall Road. Georgesville Road and Hall Road will be resurfaced within the project limits along Georgesville Road and Hill Road and Climb Road, and drainage and sewage or storm sewers will be improved. A detention pond will be constructed along with replacing the existing traffic signal with the addition of a shared use path on the south side of Hall Road. Additionally, the project will consist of existing concrete median removal, shifting of existing signal heads, and the realignment of the left turn lanes on Bethel Road at the intersection of Diker Road and other work as may be necessary. So, Director, whenever there's a shared use path, I always like to highlight it, especially because for this particular project, we received a safety grant. So could you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Good evening again. Yes, this project on Georgesville Hall Road, very exciting. I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk about it. We are, in addition to the intersection improvements that we are constructing there, we are putting a shared use path along Hall Road. And on Hall Road, we know that there are worn walking paths. And that area of town, you know, there's certain there's these neighborhoods that are surrounding the Walmart out there, and we know that the Walmart is serving as their de facto grocery store, and the folks are walking down Hall Road to try to get to the Walmart, and this is going to provide a safe, much-needed mobility option for the residents out there. This is just the first project. It's going to construction. We have several other projects under design. We have one on Georgesville that will connect the Walmart to Sullivan Avenue. Then we have another project on Sullivan Avenue that goes from Georgesville out to Wilson. And we are working with our partners at the Ohio Department of Transportation to partner on the bridge that they're reconstructing over 270 along Hall Road to provide a shared use path along there as well.
That's awesome. And I wanted to highlight that just because I think that that is an example of how, you know, this is not a singular project. This is a project that's happening within that region, that area, that is allowing for both connectivity and safety of some of the most vulnerable roadway users, our pedestrians, and ensuring that folks can get to the amenities that they need to take care of their families.
Absolutely correct.
Absolutely. And I wanted to just say Chair Day Ackhauer was very excited as a West Sider about this project, so it got her stamp of approval as well. Do my colleagues have any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Acauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White. President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 1696, 2024, to authorize the city auditor to appropriate funds within the Mobility Enterprise Fund to authorize the director of the Department of Public Service to modify an existing service contract with Lyft Bike and Scooters, LLC, to facilitate the continued operation of the KoGo Bike Share Program and extend the current contract through December 31st, 2024, to authorize the expenditure of $600,000.00 from the Mobility Enterprise Operating Fund and to declare an emergency. Lyft Bike and Scooters acquired the operating contract for KoGo in 2019. The contract term was for 5 years, ending on July 1st, 2024. This modification will extend the contract through the end of 2024 while the Department of Public Service undertakes a procurement process for future operations of the bike share program. Later this week, the Department of Public Service will issue an RFP for the Columbus and Central Ohio Shared Mobility Program. This new procurement process will include operations of the KoGo bike share system, as well as dockless shared mobility devices such as e-scooters. So, Director, I'm looking at you again. Can you tell us a little bit about the RFP and procurement process and the city's who are the city's regional partners in this particular project?
Sure. The RFP is a collaboration between the City of Columbus and several area communities and the partners that currently have KoGo or e-scooter operations. These partners include Bexley, Upper Arlington, Grandview Heights, Dublin, The Ohio State University, Easton Town Center, and the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. MORPC is assisting and coordinating with other local communities that may also be interested in offering shared micro-mobility options as a transportation option. The RFP will seek solutions to improve parking management for devices that address concerns about scooter parking that blocks sidewalks and ADA access. And once the procurement process is complete, we will seek City Council approval for the new shared mobility vendor or vendors later this year.
And can you tell me just a little bit about the ways that our bike share system and the e-scooters work together?
Sure. Currently, the Department of Public Service works with multiple e-scooter companies that have been issued city permits to stage and operate their devices within Columbus. KoGo Bike Share has been owned and operated by the city since it launched in 2013, being operated and maintained at this time by Lyft Bikes and Scooters. Last year, the Department of Public Service assumed management of KoGo, reflecting the role of the city, reflecting the growing role of bike share as part of the city's many sustainable transportation initiatives. The proposed new shared mobility program will allow the city to select one or more preferred vendors that operate services for both bike and scooter sharing in Columbus and are partners in this process. The Shared Micromobility Program will provide a coordinated, sustainable transportation option at a time when initiatives such as Bike Plus Planning, the Downtown Multimodal Transportation Study, and Link Us intend to offer more infrastructure and connections for bikes, scooters, and other micromobility devices.
So this is really just giving us a runway so that we can run a proper process to ensure that we have both our buy-in from our partners and from the department to understand who would be the best partner or partners to help us facilitate these programs for our residents.
That
Would
is
be
correct.
accurate? Okay. I also just want to put in a plug. Every time that I do a bike ride with our community members, I always ride a Kogo e-bike. Those are accessible to folks. So this is another easier way to ride a bike is through an e-bike. So I encourage folks to participate in our Kogo bike sharing program because it really is a great asset to the city. So with that, do my colleagues have any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 1717-2024 to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds within the Streets and Highways non-bond fund to appropriate funds within the Streets and Highways non-bond fund to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service to enter into agreements with and to accept contributions from the Central Ohio Transit Authority, or COTA, in Franklin County to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service to modify a professional services contract with Hunter Marketing for the roadway Link Us Mobility Corridors Initiative, Communications Outreach and Engagement Project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $425,000.00 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund and the Streets and Highways Non-Bond Fund to pay for this contract and to declare an emergency. So, Director, this contract is essentially to extend our contract so that we, for our education campaign around Link Us and Bus Rapid Transit, can you just talk about what some of those strategies are and how we are helping to educate our residents around Link Us?
Sure. The City of Columbus and Central Ohio region are on track to grow by nearly 1 million residents over the next 25 years, as we've all heard. It is critical to plan for this growth and to provide more mobility options that will make it easy, accessible, and affordable for people to get to and from where they are going. Through the Link Us initiative, COTA, the City of Columbus, Franklin County, and Morpsey have partnered to bring COTA's bus rapid transit service and expanded transportation options to the region to help manage growth and create walkable, more connected communities. The Link Us Executive Committee has heard from residents who have questions about Link Us and who want more education to fully understand how Link Us can benefit our communities in Columbus and Central Ohio. This contract modification with Hunter Marketing, which is also funded by COTA and Franklin County, will help to meet that need. It will build upon nearly 28,000 public engagement and outreach interactions that have happened so far as part of the Link Us education. The additional public engagement services will allow for many more interactions with residents and to meet people where they are, and answering their questions about how Link Us will help to address challenges related to our region's growth, affordability, and opportunity gaps.
Thank you, Director. And I will say, I think President Pro Tem Dorms and the amazing work that they did with Zoning Gallery was something that we were inspired by, that folks could actually go in, have the opportunity to see, to touch, to feel, to have conversations around what Zone In, the impacts of Zone In. And so one of the examples of how we're educating the community is through an augmented reality bus tour along West Broad Street corridor that folks can hop on a COTA bus. They can actually get out at different points, and they can see through their phones what a station would look like when we talk about transit-related development, what that could potentially look like. And I also want to note that folks don't have to be on this bus tour. There is a QR code at different bus stops on West Broad Street and included in the Link Us material that you can scan so you can see some of this augmented reality, so folks can really start to understand when we talk about bus rapid transit, what this looks like and what they can experience. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
I would just add that in addition to the bus tour and the augmentation there, we're going to be doing video production, paid media with this contract, and creative, more media, more paid media, more of what we've been doing to get those 28,000 interactions that we've already had.
And folks can also look at larger town halls that we will be doing across the city, across each of our districts as well, to engage residents so that they can ask questions and learn more about LinkUs and the bus rapid transit system that we hope to make an investment in as a city. Along with LinkUs is not just the bus, but it's also all of the infrastructure dollars that come with LinkUs that, as we talk about shared use path, as we talk about sidewalks, as we talk about protected bike lanes, that additional $60 million that would come would be part of our infrastructure dollars that we would have to invest in all parts of the city, whether you live on a LinkUs line or not, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. So this is, again, a shared investment from both CODA and Franklin County. So with that, do my colleagues have any additional questions or comments? Great. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Ordinance 1752, 2024, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service to modify an existing service contract with Laz Parking Midwest LLC, doing business as Laz Carp Associates LLC. Laz provision of off-street parking management services to authorize the expenditure of $1,900,000.00 from the Mobility Enterprise Operating Fund and to declare an emergency. This is a planned modification of a contract. Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry. Computer was failing me. This is a planned modification of a contract that was originally authored in 2021. The modification adds funding to the contract through March 31st, 2025. Funding for this ordinance is available in the Mobility Enterprise Operating Fund, meaning that ratepayers, in English that means people who pay to park on the street or in city-owned garages, are the ones paying for this contract modification. And I wanted to make that clear for folks because as we're talking about multiple modes of transportation and moving people, folks might say, why are we making this kind of contribution to parking and to additional parking? But this is indeed a fund that funds itself because it is funded by the folks who use these services. Since the original contract was authored in 2021, the Department of Public Service has added 2 garages to the contract, which largely explains the rising costs relative to the original contract. So the Starling Garage in Franklinton was added in 2023. The Astor Park Garage by Crew Stadium was added in the first quarter of this year. These 2 newer garages are in addition to the 4th and Elm, Lazarus, and Cosi garages, also owned by the city. Is there any additional information that you would add to that, Director?
Chair, I think you covered it all.
Great, thank you. Do my colleagues have any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That is all for me this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee coming for council is the Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, chaired by Councilmember De Alcauer. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. First in my committee this evening, we have Ordinance 1374-2024 to authorize the Director of the Recreation and Parks Department to modify an existing contract with CK Construction Group Incorporated for the Kilbourne Run Sports Park Improvements Project to authorize the transfer of $6,665,238.46 within the Recreation Parks Voted Bond Fund to authorize the amendment of the 2023 capital improvements budget to authorize the expenditure of $24,965,238 from the Recreation Parks Voted Bond Fund and to declare an emergency. This ordinance involves the Kilbourne Run Sports Park project, where Recreation Parks is planning to update the 62-acre park to include prime playing fields and facilities that will increase access to soccer and other field sports for the Columbus community. This will position Columbus as a destination for regional tournaments. With the design phase now complete, the department is ready to move forward with the construction contract for the project, which includes earthwork, utilities, pavement, turf fields, playgrounds, and structures. It is the intent of the department that the improved park will open in spring 2025, and so emergency action is requested to keep the project on that schedule. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have Ordinance 1633-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Neighborhoods to enter into a contract with Canvas Consulting LLC in the amount of $100,000 for marketing and outreach services to educate residents about Columbus area commissions and ultimately increase participation, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of City Code, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of up to $100,000 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. Earlier this year, I advocated for these dollars as one of my budget amendments because I truly believe in uplifting and supporting our neighborhood's area commissions. As someone who served on an area commission for 8 years, I know how hard it is to get the word out about what area commissions are, what they do, and how to get involved with them. 2/3 of commissions have vacant seats, which can limit their ability to reach residents and businesses in their communities. I believe working to fill these vacancies can be an opportunity to increase diversity of age, gender, and race so that these commissions represent the diversity of the communities they serve. The department will be contracted with Canvas to create and implement this education and awareness campaign on area commissions. This campaign will be a year-long effort and will both help encourage people to run for area commission seats during our late summer elections, and which is when the majority of our commissions are elected, as well as provide general education on what area commissions do. My hope with this campaign is that we will mobilize and inspire residents who are interested in public service to volunteer their time on area commissions, where they can advocate for the needs of their community and help advise the city on future projects and policies. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
And as I read this next ordinance, I invite representatives from Voice Corps to come forward, please. This evening, we have Ordinance 1821-2024 to authorize the city clerk to enter into grant agreement with Voice Corps Reading Service in support of their free reading services, to authorize an appropriation and expenditure of $105,000 within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, and to declare an emergency. The U.S. Census estimates that 2.3% of our population is visually impaired, or roughly 21,000 Columbus residents. This number does not include those who have some other disability which prevents use of print media such as paraplegia, Parkinson's, stroke, or other injury. Voice Corps is an organization that reads print materials aloud for those who are visually impaired or unable to access print materials. Since first reading the Columbus Dispatch over the radio in 1975, the organization and its services has grown exponentially, and today there are 200-plus volunteers serve over 120,000 Ohio residents via radio, TV, streaming platforms, and internet. The targeted constituencies are adults who have lost the ability to use print due to blindness and vision loss, accident or injury, diseases that affect mobility, and veterans who suffered a service-related disability which prevents using print. During the pandemic, Voice Corps was able, with support from City Council, to maintain daily transmission of daily newspapers, which contained vital information about COVID-19 safety, curfews, and other information the rest of Columbus had access to through the height of the pandemic. Including support for this organization in our budget this year was a priority for me, as I have witnessed the much-needed services that Voice Corps alone provides for our aging and visually impaired residents. And this evening, we are invited by our Executive Director, Mark Chividan of Voice Corps, and I'll turn the floor over to you to share good news about all that Voice Corps does.
Thank you, Councilmember DeArcher, and President Harden, and the rest of the council members, many of whom are familiar with what we do. Others of you are a little newer, and we've not been able to become acquainted with you. Some of you have been at some of our events, one of which is called Leaders Are Readers, which we haven't had since the COVID incident, and we'd like to have you all back to read 20 minutes or so. We'll get that going here before too long, but I believe the council members probably told you just about everything there is to tell about Voice Corps, but our small staff of just 4 full-time people are here to help overcome information inequality among folks that are print disabled. And that is a growing group of folks that when Voice Corps first came on the air back in 1975, was really put on the air by some people that had been blind much of their life or all of their life. Now we're seeing that changing, where age-related diseases and maladies that include age-related macular degeneration and those kinds of things brought on by glaucoma and others are causing these problems to be increased among the senior citizens. And as the group of persons like me, unfortunately, are moving into that age, we're seeing that increase. But, we operate 24 hours a day and have been for years. We do 162 hours of new programming every week, including beginning at 7 o'clock in the morning with live readings of the Wall Street Journal, and then at 8 o'clock with the complete reading of the Dispatch. That's every day, including holidays and the weekends, so that our folks can get the information that you can't get on a regular television show or a brief radio mention. And oftentimes those kinds of things are repeated over and over on the news headlines TV stations. But we're very pleased to be on the air. Voice Corps begins its 50th year on the air this year. When we first went on the air, we had special closed circuit radios. Over time, and we still have those for those people that would like to have them, but over time we've started to be received by cell phone. You can receive us by smart devices like Alexa. We're on some cable systems. We're in hospitals and care facilities. Our largest audience, though, with a partnership and great cooperation from WOSU and Ohio State, we can be received by anyone in Central Ohio over the air on channel 34.7. It's a new kind of thing that's available, and we're very proud to be one of the first reading services in the country to be doing this. We're in the open air. All you need is just a little inexpensive antenna that you can just put on your TV, tune to channel 34.7, and we're there 24 hours a day. We appreciate the opportunity to serve the community, and we thank you very much for allowing us to be here and for this proposed resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to point out that although this service was designed for the visually impaired, it's also really important for those people who have difficulty reading, for people who have low literacy levels, and also for ESL students who are learning how to read in English. So think beyond, it's not just for visually impaired. There's so many other people who can benefit from this. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Day, Coward, Dorrance, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you
very much.
As I read this next ordinance, I call up the representatives from Homes on the Hill. This evening, we have ordinance 1838-2024 to authorize the city clerk to enter into a grant agreement with Homes on the Hill Community Development Corporation in support of their housing counseling program, to authorize an appropriation and expenditure within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, and to declare an emergency. Homes on the Hill is a nonprofit organization located on the west side of Columbus with an accomplished record of home rehabilitation and new construction, along with homeowner education and various other housing-related counseling services. Their organization looks to strengthen neighborhoods by providing quality, affordable housing, advocacy, education, and support services to individuals and families primarily of the low to moderate income levels. And so tonight, we have Executive Directors Stephen Torcell and Program Director Daniel Ruggiero of Homes on the Hill. I turn the floor over to you, Daniel, to share information on the organization.
Thank you. Thank you. President Harden, Councilmember Day Akauer, thank you for inviting us tonight to speak in support of our housing counseling programs. I think most of you are familiar with Homes on the Hill, but if you're not, we are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency and a community housing development organization. We've been around for over 30 years. We really started out focusing on single and multi-family affordable housing on the west side, which we still do today. We started offering our housing counseling services, including first-time homebuyer education. And really, we became in 2002 the first agency in Columbus to offer our services in Spanish. Today, I think we're still the only agency right now with a HUD-certified Spanish-speaking housing counselor. Unidos US is our HUD intermediary. They're one of the largest Latino advocacy agencies in the country. In 2006, we were one of the first agencies that started foreclosure prevention. And as you can imagine, we've been very busy with that since the pandemic. We're one of the few agencies now, I think, still doing that as well because the funding on the national level is sort of drying up for that. Since the pandemic, we've evolved again, and we've been focusing more on rental counseling. I'm sure you're aware of the eviction situation we have going on in Columbus. We have a City of Columbus housing resource specialist with us now that helps folks access emergency rental assistance. And as you can imagine, that is very busy. I know funding is limited for that as well. And really, the federal funding we've received this year is some of the lowest we've seen since the pandemic. So we're really thankful for this support on the local level from the City of Columbus. This support will really help us expand our capacity to offer all of our housing counseling services and even help us with the more complicated reporting on the back end, dealing with all of these programs that we now offer to really serve the families and residents of the City of Columbus. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Yep. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you.
I have one last ordinance, Council President, in the Rules and Policy Committee. With your permission, can I move to that committee? In Rules and Policy, I have Ordinance 1440-2024 to amend various sections of Chapter 2331 of the Columbus City Codes to enhance the ability of the Community Relations Commission to protect individuals from discrimination that may occur within the City of Columbus. The Community Relations Commission, or CRC, established under the Department of Neighborhoods, helps eliminate discrimination or remove the effects of past discrimination in the City of Columbus. The Commission accomplishes this through the work and input of 15 appointed commissioners. Residents are able to file complaints of discrimination with the Commission, who then reviews the case and decides whether or not discriminatory practices were carried out. A recent code update added the ability for the CRC to impose civil penalties. However, this change created an additional enforcement tool, but inadvertently made commissioners public officials, which inhibited the ability of the CRC to recruit new commissioners. The code change before us today maintains the civil penalty, but adjusts the process so the commissioners are once again advisory. Advisory status ensures the ability to recruit members who have strong content knowledge as well as deep community connections. Other small changes are included in this legislation, such as adding bona fide occupational qualifications to the code, thus aligning with federal law, the introduction of a fee schedule, and other small language changes aimed at ensuring the Commission stays efficient and accessible. This legislation was the subject of a public hearing at the beginning of this month, and I want to thank the department and the commissioner who testified in favor of this change for their participation in that. I'm looking forward to passing this legislation so that our CRC can have the capacity to continue protecting our residents. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
That's all for me, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, chaired by President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. I'd invite Hannah Miller to come up to the podium while I introduce Ordinance 1642-2024 to authorize the city clerk to enter a grant agreement with the Ohio State University in support of the Opportunity Port Pilot Program operated by the Drug Enforcement and Policy Center, and to authorize an appropriation of expense from the Job Growth Subfund. Opportunity Port is a criminal reconciling initiative and expungement application assistance program that began here at Columbus City Council, and it is now managed by the Ohio State University Drug Enforcement Policy Center. Opportunity Port connects residents directly with trusted service providers, including Legal Aid, Society of Columbus, Equality Ohio, and the Franklin County Municipal Court Self-Help Center, provide free legal assistance to help seal or expunge Ohio criminal record. This money will help individuals with past criminal convictions move past those mistakes and earn a better living for their family and find stable housing. I'm happy that we'll have the opportunity to increase that number this year to ensure that more families have access to this economic and housing stability that were being held back due to a prior mistake in their past. Hannah Miller, a former staffer from Columbus City Council who now helps to manage this project over at the Drug Enforcement Policy Center, is here with us to talk a little bit more about what Opportunity Port's been up to since we were from last. Ms. Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden, President Pro Tem Dorns, members of council, new faces on council who I've not spoken in front of before. My name's Hannah Miller. I work at the Ohio State University Drug Enforcement and Policy Center, DEPIC for short. There, I have the distinct pleasure of serving as a program manager for Opportunity Port, overseeing operations, coordinating stakeholders, supporting legal service providers such as Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, who assist prospective sealing and expungement applicants through the Opportunity Port website. Since launching in December 2021, Opportunity Port's legal service providers have prepared applications to seal or expunge eligible cases for over 700 Franklin County residents. In doing so, they reviewed over almost 6,000 cases to determine eligibility. In January of this year, we expanded statewide, and DEPIC is assisting residents of Ohio who have Ohio criminal records with record relief through the Opportunity Port website. So we're about a little over 1,000 users to date then across the state, including Franklin County. But Franklin County remains the only service area in which Opportunity Port also files sealing and expungement applications on behalf of users and covers the filing fee. Again, thank you to this council for the funds that have helped us remove administrative and financial barriers to record relief for our justice-involved neighbors. Not only is Opportunity Port providing a much-needed service to Franklin County's justice-involved population, but the program has been a very effective vehicle for research. I know when you hear research, you squirm a little bit, because what could that possibly mean? But I promise the insights that we've gleaned from assisting individuals with applications to seal or expunge cases have been actionable. As you might be aware, House Bill 460 was introduced in the spring at the General Assembly, and if passed, it would allow for government-initiated sealing of eligible criminal cases, also known as automatic sealing. While preparing to expand Opportunity Port statewide, DEPIC audited all the courts in Ohio and found inconsistency in the application of and compliance with sealing and expungement laws. Kind of a mess. We then formulated recommendations to ensure the state legislature craft automatic record relief policy that would address these issues and be both impactful and implementable. We have a report on that. You can check out the DEPIC website for it if you're interested in reading it. I want to remind everyone that not only do convictions constitute a criminal record in the state of Ohio, arrests and dismissed cases will also appear on a private or Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation background check. Your average landlord or human resource specialist won't be able to tell the difference, and now preliminary results from the research we have done at DEPIC in partnership with colleagues at the John Glenn College of Public Affairs supports the idea that even dismissed cases can be detrimental to an individual's employment outcomes. So let me put this into context really quick. Last time DEPIC presented to council, we shared that nearly 43% of Black adult men in Columbus have had a criminal charge dismissed. Since then, we've discovered that adults convicted of a criminal offense and adults with dismissed criminal charges both experience a decline in wages. Once officially published, we hope this research will aid advocates who continue to push for state-level criminal justice reform, as well as spark conversations about what other legal protections could be put in place for this otherwise unprotected class of individuals who have a criminal record. I look forward to returning to council in December to commemorate Opportunity Port's 3-year anniversary. Until then, on behalf of the Drug Enforcement Policy Center, thank you for allowing us to share Opportunity Port's work with you all and for the chance to serve the city and its justice-involved residents for a 4th year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And I think when this council talks about building economic pathways for our residents, this is one of the easiest ways for us to do so. When Ms. Miller's talking about those folks that have the amount of even just charges that have been dismissed. I won't mention what university, but the one up north had a study a number of years ago that showed that folks that seal a criminal conviction or a charge can expect to see a 20+% increase in their wages within a year. So we're talking about removing barriers and making sure that folks, especially right now, in Central Ohio that has a low unemployment rate. We want to make sure that folks that are unemployed or underemployed that have these barriers, get them removed. And I think one of the really important things that when Ms. Miller talks about is making sure that people are connected with high quality services. Prior to Opportunity Port existing, it was very difficult for folks to be able to access these kind of record sealing services. And Opportunity Port has really streamlined this and really brought this kind of services literally to people's smartphone to be able to access this in a much more user-friendly kind of way. And I think ultimately that's the realist success and sort of the secret sauce of this program so far. I do want to thank Doug Berman from the Drug Enforcement Policy Center and all of the service providers that have partnered with Opportunity Port to date. Without them, this doesn't work, and just appreciate going into this blind with us 3+ years ago about how to actually figure this out, given a lot of the constraints that the criminal justice system is not designed to be user-friendly. And this is a way in which we're trying to design a system to be user-friendly on top of a system that is not. And I think we've seen a lot of progress. I'm very excited to be able to continue to fund this program and to be able to help to assist more residents across our city with this. So any of my colleagues have any questions or comments?
I was just going to say the other yes to everything you just said, President Pro Tem, but I also think the thing that also resonated with me was the inconsistency within the system of how we use something that is a tool for our residents. And so I just think about this is life-changing for so many of our folks, no matter where they are in their lifespan, no matter, everyone has someone that they're taking care of, even if it's themselves. And so the fact that we can provide this service to ensure that people can take care of themselves, can take care of their family, can take care of their community is huge. And so I just want to thank you for all of the work. And it's always exciting when you come back so that we can see how much more work is done, because the work is never done, right? But we only expand on it and we get better and better at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments? And again, thank you, Ms. Miller, for all your work on this to make sure that this was not easy to start. And I know when you're talking about taking this statewide now, it's a lot of effort to be able to unpack a lot of those systems that are not designed to serve the folks that are in them. So just, again, thank you for all the work for all the years for doing this. And with that, I move for passage.
Second.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, chaired by Councilmember Favor. In her absence, Vice Chair Green will read her ordinance. Councilmember, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, President Harden. Tonight in our Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, we have 3 ordinances on second reading. The first one is Ordinance 1687-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to modify a service agreement with Benevate, Inc. in the amount of up to $17,150 to provide 16 additional licenses and database lookup functionality for the use of their Neighborly software, to waive the competitive bidding requirements of the Columbus City Code, and to authorize an expenditure of $17,150 and to declare an emergency. The Department of Development's Housing Division has been using the Neighborly software since 2021 to help process and track housing program applications safely, securely, and efficiently from any location. It's been incredibly helpful in streamlining and simplifying the process for residents to apply for supports or programs through the various programs within the Housing Division. After 3 years of using it, the Housing Division would like to modify their contract, which was approved on November 9th of 2023 via Ordinance 2974-2023, which expires on December 14th of this year, so that they can add those 16 additional users and further expand the functionality. To continue using the specific software, they are once again seeking to waive competitive bidding and are likewise requesting emergency action to allow additional Housing Division and administration staff to begin using the software as quickly as possible. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Perfect. And then at this time, I am going to pass the floor to you, Council President, to introduce the next 2 ordinances.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everyone in this chamber is familiar with the displacement and evictions happening around Columbus as we continue with our own housing crisis. Councilmember Favor and I are continuing to partner on this issue to understand our legal and policy options regarding these big apartment flips that are displacing our residents. Today, I'm happy to introduce 2 ordinances that will offer support to displaced residents, and I'm thankful to all our colleagues who helped make these happen. The first is ordinance 1744-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a grant agreement with Riverview International Center, Inc. in an amount of $40,000 for case management and operational support, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $40,000 from the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, and to authorize the advancement of funds on a predetermined schedule to allow for the payment of expenses beginning June 1st, 2024, and to declare an emergency. The Riverview International Center has been a beacon of community in the neighborhood for years, offering culturally competent services to area residents. The staff themselves were evicted from their office, but that hasn't stopped them from continuing to work with and advocate for area residents. This ordinance will help them offer case management and support for displaced residents, many of who are new to Columbus and America and still trying to figure out the legal system. I'd like to welcome up Director Amali Shishi to give an update to Council. Welcome back to Council.
Thank you, Council President and Council members, for passing, hopefully, this important ordinance. I want to assure you that $40,000 in the hands of Riverview International Center, or as we call it, the RIC, will directly and positively impact thousands of immigrants and refugees in Columbus. The RIC has been serving and supporting new Americans in the city since 2015, when we opened an apartment on Riverview Drive, in hopes of becoming a place where women in this isolated neighborhood could come to socialize, learn English, and ask any question they had about life in America. We built trust through the years, and the women we met in those early days spread the word about the help they were receiving. We were not paid for services, we did not advertise our services, but the word spread. The help they received was things like access to benefits, navigating school enrollment, communications with teachers, driving lessons, and of course, English classes, and that opportunity to socialize and meet their neighbors. In those early days, each of our staff members, myself included, spoke Arabic because that was the primary language of the newcomers in Riverview Drive. And still, the RIC is committed to hiring culturally competent staff, and especially those with lived immigration experience. That's still very, very important to us. We added a workforce development program in early 2020 thanks to a generous grant from the Franklin County Commissioners. But right as that program launched, COVID hit, and our program became both workforce development and unemployment support, as hundreds of our community members lost their jobs in the service industry. We had to pivot again in late 2021 when we partnered with Community Refugee and Immigration Services to support more than 200 refugees from Afghanistan who moved into Riverview Drive and the surrounding Northwest area. But in early 2024, we faced our biggest challenge yet, which was the news that 89 units on Riverview Drive, including the building where we'd operated for more than 8 years, were sold to a developer, a local developer, with plans to renovate everything, requiring all those families and our staff of 8 and our 200 volunteers to relocate. In a very short time, we had to understand the developer's plans for the neighborhood, consider our own move, and assist our families. Much time was given to advocating on their behalf with the buyer, Coastal Ridge, who gratefully has made concessions in order to support our neighbors. I'm in regular contact with them now and hope that I can hold them accountable to the commitments that they've made for our community members. But a move is a move, and both my team and our neighbors need very practical support through it. This $40,000 grant will be used to add an additional case manager to our staff who will focus on helping our neighbors navigate the complex housing climate we see in Columbus. We will also use this funding to provide direct rent assistance to those most impacted by these sudden moves. We know our families, we can communicate with them, and we can ensure that funds from the city are delivered in an efficient and culturally appropriate way. So thank you for trusting us, and we look forward to future collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are very grateful for this work that you've been doing. We've seen a lot of coverage about this, and when we found out who was doing the work of connecting our residents, trying to keep folks housed, we wanted to be a partner with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Hearing none, I move for passage. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Day, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed. Thank you. The next ordinance in housing, homelessness, and building is ordinance 1745-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to modify his service contract with R.H. Brown and Company, LLC, in the amount of up to $323,600, and to extend the time to provide support for those in need of emergency rehousing services, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code, to authorize the term of the contract from November 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $170,000 from the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, to authorize the expenditure of $153,600 from the ERA2 fund, and to declare an emergency. This is for the Emergency Rehousing Initiative. Thanks to the support from Council in partnership with the Department of Development, we've been able to expand this program. This program helps residents when they are displaced, helping them locate new housing quickly to achieve stability. This will also be able to serve any future residents in crisis who are involuntarily displaced in the months to come as the summer unfolds. This is not specifically for Sandridge or Ridgeview residents, but rather for any and all residents, including those who may yet experience an adverse circumstance this summer. So we're planning ahead. Are there any questions or comments on this ordinance? Clerk, please call the row. Is there a motion to approve? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Day, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Ordinance is passed. Thank you. We actually do have a speaker on this ordinance, Mr. Nate Wilkins on this. Thank you for catching that. Mr. Wilkins, welcome back to council.
(1612) Arlington Avenue. I'm in awe of support of this. Let me say again, I would love to see this extended more than 23 years and a half. And that goes for the state of Ohio, because I know people got different situations, different requirements and whatever else. Again, I would like to see this in place for 85 years. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Thank you for your advocacy. If seeing no further questions or comments, now I move for passage. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Day, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Ordinance is passed. Seeing no further business coming from the Housing and Homelessness Committee, may I have a motion to recess? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Day, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
We are in recess. We'll take zoning in 5 minutes. 36 will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White. President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White. President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Dorrance chairs that committee and all members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Before we begin tonight's zoning agenda, first a little bit of housekeeping. Would the clerk please read the numbers of legislation in the zoning committee this evening that requires a waiver of second reading?
0272-2024, ordinances 1706, 1709, 1733, 273, 1700, 1727, 1734, and 1736-2024.
Thank you, Clerk. I now move to waive second reading on those items read aloud. Second.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White. President Harden.
Waived.
Thank you, Clerk. Now, allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking for council on rezonings and variances. We only hear a staff presentation for ordinances that have a disapproval from a recommending body, or if we have a public speaker signed up to speak against an ordinance. We permit 3 speakers on each side of the ordinance, 3 for, 3 against. We also ask that those speakers limit their remarks to 3 minutes per the standard rules of City Council. Only those who own property within 125 feet of an address that is subject to variance requests are legally able to make public comments on a council variance pursuant to legal advice from the city attorney's office. All speakers on the council variance, including city staff, area commissioners, applicants, and members of the public, will be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives of the area commission are always able to speak on an ordinance who do not need to fill out a speaker slip, but we do encourage them to alert city staff to make sure that we have room on the agenda. This evening, we have 5 public speaker slips signed up to speak on one ordinance, and we're of 2 area commissioners to speak on 2 different ordinances as well. On the advice of the city attorney's office, I will now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you have to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer in pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Shannon Pine from the Department of Building and Zoning Services, Christopher Lohr from the Division of Planning, Daniel Moorhead from Traffic Management in the Department of Public Service, Director of Public Service Kelly Skoko, and Deputy Director James Young of Public Service, and Deputy Director for Housing Strategy Aaron Prosser have all been sworn in. Now we'll move on from that mouthful. Before we begin tonight's zoning committee, as we do from time to time, I want to point out a few items on the committee's agenda for the public to consider. Our agenda tonight will be considered 9 total ordinances that could pave the way for building 486 new housing units across the city of Columbus. If approved, these units will be built in different neighborhoods across the city, including North Linden, Livingston Avenue area, Near East, Wyland Park, and the Far East communities. As we know, our region is experiencing a housing crisis as economic growth continues. At the current rate, Columbus is currently underdeveloped for housing. The units we'll be voting on tonight represents less than 2.5% of the close to 20,000 units per year we need to keep up with the growth of the city. I want to recognize the impact of this legislation before we move into the agenda. First, we have ordinance 0272 to rezone 198 McNaught Road, being 24.7 plus acres located on the east side of McNaught Road, 1,425 plus feet on the East Broad Street from R Rural District to LAR 12 Limited Apartment Residential District. Site consists of 5 parcels formerly developed with 3 single-unit dwellings. The requested rezoning and companion variance, while a multi-unit residential development with a maximum of 296 dwelling units at a density of 11.98 dwelling units per acre, of which 20% or 90 units will be designated as affordable units as set-asides for intent to qualify based on 80% of the area median income, which works out to an individual making about $55,000 a year, or a family of 4 making $70,000 a year. Such occupations, including teachers, union construction workers, registered nurses, or entry-level police officers or firefighters, are covered by folks that make that type of wage. The proposal has approval from city staff, the Development Commission, but received a disapproval from the Far East Area Commission due to a 3-3 tie vote. Just a note that a tie vote from an area commission is considered a disapproval for purposes of the zoning committee. Due to that disapproval, we'll now hear a staff presentations before we hear from the applicant and the public speaker signed up to speak on the ordinance. First, we'll hear from Chief Zoning Officer from the Department of Building and Zoning Services, Ms. Shannon Pine. Ms. Pine, the floor is yours.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Dorrance, President Harden, and members of council. The 24.7 acre site requested for the LAR-LD Limited Apartment Residential District is subject to a limitation text which includes the following: use restrictions and supplemental development standards addressing building and parking setbacks,
two-story building height, traffic access standards and improvements to McNaughton Road, landscaping, open space, screening, building materials, and restrictions regarding Dana Road to the south. The text also includes commitments to a site plan which reflects building placement, open space and tree preservation areas, architectural building elevations, and streetscape concepts. The proposed density of 11.98 units to the acre is an average density of the two multi-unit residential developments immediately north of the subject site, which are 7 units per acre and 17.9 units per acre respectively. This site is located in the planning boundary of the Far East Land Use Plan, which recommends low, medium density residential of 6 to 10 dense units per acre at this location. It includes adoption of the Columbus citywide planning policies, design guidelines, and while this density is slightly above the recommended density, the plan does state that higher density can be supported if the proposal includes a high level of site and architectural design. Efforts were made by the applicant to reduce the intensity of the proposal over its 5-year history. The previous 2021 proposal, which you'll see on this slide, submitted to City Council but not acted upon, was for 192 units on 14.8 acres at 13 units to the acre and about 19% open space. And it had included some 3-story buildings. The overall density with this proposal tonight is decreased to under 12 units per acre, adds more usable open space, roughly 25% of the site, and contains only 2-story buildings. Another important difference with this proposal is the commitment for affordable units, as already stated by President Pro Tem Dorans. Staff remains in the support of the requested LARLD Limited Apartment Residential District and the proposed concurrent variance. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Zoning Official Pine. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, we'll move on to Division of Planning Manager Christopher Lohr. Mr. Lohr, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Dorans. The planning Division supports the requested rezoning. C2P2 states that projects that are proposed at a density higher than the recommended land use may be supported if they include a high level of site and architectural design. The Far East Land Use Plan recommends low-medium density for this location at 6 to 10 units to the acre. Staff supports the proposal as the proposed redevelopment of less than 12 units to the acre includes sidewalk access along McNaughton with pedestrian connections to the site, appropriate landscaping, significant on-site open space, and building elevations that provide for high-quality materials consistent with Columbus citywide planning policies, design guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lohr. Any questions from my colleagues for the Division of Planning? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Daniel Moorhead from the Division of Traffic Management. Mr. Moorhead, the floor is yours.
President Pro Tem Dorans, President Hardin, members of council, good evening. The Division of Traffic Management has reviewed and approved a traffic access study for this proposed area of development and identified the necessary right-of-way improvements. I've been asked to speak a little bit more detail on our traffic impact study process. So to get into that, the first step in the traffic impact study process is to identify the amount of traffic that would be anticipated to be generated by a development. We call that number the trip generation. These estimates are based on data collected throughout the country and compiled by the Institute of Transportation Engineers and are published in the nationally recognized Trip Generation Manual. Once the trip generation has been estimated, the next step is to determine whether a traffic impact study or a traffic access study is required. Where a traffic impact study would include both site access and off-site intersections, a traffic access study is limited only to site access. Traffic impact studies are required when traffic generated by a proposed development results in 200 or more estimated non-pass-by trip-ins in the peak hour. When a proposed development is likely to increase traffic but not significantly enough for a traffic impact study, a traffic access study may be required. In the case of the site before us today, The proposed development is anticipated to generate 115 non-pass-by trips in the AM peak hour and 148 in the PM peak hour. This trip generation is likely to increase traffic, but not enough for a traffic impact study. So traffic...
Excuse me, I would ask that folks in the gallery please allow for the... Excuse me. Please allow for the departments to make their presentation. Thank you. Please. You may continue.
So a traffic access study was required. Based on the results of this traffic access study, a southbound left turn lane was determined to be needed at the site access point to McNaughton Road. In order to avoid the hourglass effect from travel lanes deflecting back and forth, the Division of Traffic Management is requiring a consistent 3-lane section with a 2-way left turn lane between the site and the adjacent intersections to the north and south. That would be Kinver Edgeway to the south and Nancy Gantz Lane to the north. To provide some additional context, the Department of Public Service has some investments forthcoming and in the recent past in public transportation improvements in the vicinity of this site. Construction is planned to begin this year on a $25 million project to improve traffic safety and operations along the East Broad Street corridor. New eastbound and westbound through lanes, sidewalk, and shared use path will be provided along East Broad Street. At McNaughton Road, new and longer turn lanes will be provided along with sidewalk and shared use path between Nancy Gantz Lane and East Broad Street. This project follows an investment in the $2 million project a few years ago at the intersection of East Main Street and McNaughton Road that added turn lanes and sidewalk to address traffic safety and operations at that intersection. Additionally, the city was awarded nearly $8 million for a $12 million project to continue shared use path construction along McNaughton Road from Nancy Gantz Lane, where the Broad Street project will leave off, to the south to East Main Street. Additional sidewalk connections, street lighting, and storm sewer are planned, and the Department of Public Service will be investigating locations where it might be appropriate to widen for left turn lanes. Design for this project is just beginning this year, and construction is planned for 2028. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moorhead. I do want to pause. Director Skoko, if there's anything you want to add from an infrastructure investment standpoint, I think Mr. Moorhead laid out, I think, some of the specifics and the dollar amounts within that area. But obviously, as we've engaged with members of the community, traffic has been one of the big questions, and we'll talk about some of the other projects that have come before council in this area previously. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit holistically about sort of the traffic issues within that area and sort of, again, build upon those investments that Mr. Moorhead just talked about.
Sure. Good evening, President Harden, Chair Dorans, members of council. We do have that project plan that is along McNaughton from Nancy Gantz Way up to Main Street that we do. It's a federal project. We do feel like it is going to make a vast improvement along there with the traffic. Adding a left turn lane in the needed areas, not fully all along that roadway, but where we need it based on whatever the design is going to tell. The design right now is in the very early stages, as Mr. Moorhead said, and it would, so we really do not know specific locations for those turn lanes. But wherever that is needed, it will allow for the traffic to keep flowing, and the person turning left today is holding up traffic. They'll be able to move off to the side and allow that traffic to continue to move on.
So it's fair to say, based on those investments, so again, we've heard from a lot of residents about the traffic specifically as the road's currently constructed. And the whole goal of those turn lanes is to reduce that congestion as people are turning on and off, correct?
That's correct, and improve safety in the area.
Thank you. Moving on, I want to ask for a presentation from Deputy Director for Housing Strategies, Ms. Aaron Prosser. Ms. Prosser.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, President Harden, members of council. Good evening. The proposed rezoning of 198 McNaughton Road in the Far East neighborhood supports the Columbus housing strategy by building new housing to meet the unmet need in the area. The proposal not only adds housing units in an area that is in high demand, but provides new housing options in an existing residential neighborhood that is close to transit, jobs, educational opportunities, and neighborhood amenities. The proposed housing... The proposed housing strategy meets 2 out of the 4 pillars of the housing strategy. The first is build. Home prices in this census tract rose 31% from 2020 to 2022. This indicates a high demand in the area and the need for additional housing to slow the growth in housing costs. Between 2020 and 2022, rents in the area rose 16.8%, indicating an unmet demand for additional rental units in the area specifically. In this census tract, 84 units were built between 2010 and 2022. In that same time period, 54,000 units, 865 units were built in the city of Columbus. The second pillar it meets include, the census tract currently has 2,351 housing units, 86.7% are owner occupied. Therefore, the existing housing options in the area are limited and opportunities to rent are severely limited. 30% of the residents in the area in the census tract are over 65, compared to 11.5% of residents in the city of Columbus. And 15.96% of the households have children under the age of 18, compared to 22% of the households in the city of Columbus. This indicates a greater need for housing diversity to meet the needs of young professionals without children and those interested in aging in place. The proposal is located near Broad Street with access to public transit, amenities including grocery stores, pharmacies, medical care, daycare facilities, and schools. And while housing scarcity will drive up housing prices throughout our region, in these locations where we have high demand, we expect to see accelerated housing price increases as the market responds. Therefore, this investment in an amenity-rich neighborhood will be critical to maintaining the economic diversity in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prosser. I want to pause and see if any of my colleagues had questions for any representatives from the departments at this time. Councilmember Brosa de Padilla.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. So if we could go back to the traffic impact study, I believe, or when we decided to do an impact study versus an access, when you talked, how did we come up with the number of trips? Because that is, from my understanding, how we decide whether it's access or impact, correct? So how did we come up with the formulation of the number of trips?
Councilmember Brosa de Padilla, sorry. The number of trips that is the threshold between a traffic impact study and traffic access study, that's something that is defined in city code, which was updated this past December. Prior to that update, the Department of Public Service engaged a consultant to search through the country for national best practices for what that number would be, and the number of 200 is what that discussion and analysis ended up coming up with, and I'd defer to our director for any more details on that.
If I could ask if everyone who's from the departments to make sure you've got the mic pulled up just so that everyone can hear you. Thank you.
And specifically, the reason that I asked the question is that in this particular instance, we had decided on a traffic access study instead of the impact along the length of McNaughton. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, was the number associated with how many units, or was it associated with a prediction of how many cars we might have? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at when we tried to understand the number of trips.
Sure. So the way the number of trips is estimated, there's a number of studies of similar type developments throughout the country where the number of units is collected and then traffic counts are done that find the number of vehicles entering and exiting those sites, and a number of those data points are compiled together by ITE. And so what
is ITE?
The Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the trip generation manual that they publish provides estimated equations that are based on that data that's collected nationally. And so for any given development, you can take the number of units that are planned and estimate based on that the number of trip ins into or out of the development that would be anticipated in the AM and PM peak hours.
And we are talking about peak hours, and we're talking about in and out of the development, which would then make us understand if we needed to do impact versus access.
Correct. That number would be the threshold.
Okay. I have a couple additional questions so I would like to go back for just a second. I want to ensure that folks know the about 2 mile stretch from Broad Street to Main Street, that is all City of Columbus, or that is not all City of Columbus, correct?
There are a portion or two within that that are still under the jurisdiction of the Franklin County Engineers Office.
He said that there are two, that is part of the 2-mile stretch that is part of Franklin County, that is not part of City of Columbus. Secondly, I want to ask another question, or a couple of more questions. So that means that my assumption is then that we work closely with Franklin County if we are making any sort of roadway improvements, if we are making any sort of roadway investments, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then I also want to understand, we know, we were actually just at a meeting today where our understanding is that AEP will be installing some of those large metal poles, I believe, on the west side of McNaughton. I know in the past, when there has been conversations about the broadening of McNaughton Road, there were some infrastructure limitations, meaning the way that the roadway was built, that might prevent us from widening the road. If indeed there are utility poles in the way and we want to widen the road because that gives us more ability, what do we do in that case? Director, I guess this is a question for you.
Chair, I'm going to defer to James Young, our Deputy Director.
Thank you.
Thank you. When the roadway is being widened and the utilities need to move, we usually work with them on finding appropriate pole locations, or in some cases, we underground to ensure they have access. Typically, the area we're looking at, if it's transmission, it usually involves pole moving. If it is distribution, we have to work with the property owners on relocating their utilities or finding access routes for them.
So to be clear, if they were putting in those poles, that would not be an impediment potentially to widening the road, but we would have to then find some sort of solve. If we're talking about adding a shared use path, have we identified where in the road that might be? I know it's under design right now.
Right now, it's just starting design. We don't know which side we're putting the shared use path on, so we're going to try and optimize that. We're also going to put sidewalks on the other side.
And for our residents, when we talk about a shared use path, what does that look like?
It's typically an asphalt path that's 10 feet wide that gives you the ability to bike or walk on through the area, and it's usually adjacent to the roadway and it's inside the right-of-way.
And there's a barrier between the roadway and the shared use path?
With a shared use path, typically it's just distance from the traveled lane. It doesn't necessarily have a barrier. The barrier's put in for other roadway conditions.
And then my other question, two more, I promise I'm almost done. Two more. When we talk about the turn lanes that could potentially go in this stretch of road, where and how many, do we know that yet, or is that in design?
That we're too early in the design to determine where the turn lanes are going to be.
Okay. And then my final question is, are there additional improvements that we would make for pedestrians? So if we talked about there being a sidewalk, we talked about there being a shared use path, is there additional safety measures that we're taking for pedestrians along the stretch of the road?
There are. If there's crossings that are going to happen on the road, we would use rapid flashing beacons to notify drivers that people are crossing in the area, or we would try and locate them basically at intersections.
Okay, and I do know that there is a school along the way. There's an entrance to a school. That's usually where we have a flashing beacon. We do not have one there now. Is that correct? But is there plans to have one?
I don't know that information, but we will definitely look into that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for the questions. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mr. Young, I did want to ask a follow-up based upon that. So I understand we're very early in the phase from the engineering work regarding the turn lanes, but what sort of guides that decision-making when you think about where does it make the most sense to put some of these turning lanes? I know we don't have like an answer for where they'll exactly be with this street area we're talking about here, but you could say like conceptually sort of how are those decisions sort of made?
Those are made based on a traffic study, looking at basically doing counts and looking at turns in the area.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues for the department at this time? Seeing none, I would invite the applicant to come forward. Mr. Michael Shannon's representing this applicant. Welcome back to council, sir. Floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden, Chairman Dorns. It's a pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of the applicant. Staff did an excellent job addressing the compelling reasons why this rezoning request is both necessary and appropriate. This zoning is necessary to address the critical shortage of market rate and affordable housing in Central Ohio. As you know, the housing crisis has manifested itself post-pandemic, and each and every one of your constituents are experiencing increasingly trying times, and developers are facing increasingly trying times. There was kind of a perfect storm that hit Central Ohio in conjunction with the pandemic. The skyrocketing interest rates, the unprecedented population growth, the exponential cost of labor and building materials have all skyrocketed to form a perfect storm, so much that the American dream of owning a single-family home has become a nightmare. Not only is this zoning necessary for this site, it's appropriate. It's appropriate for this site based on the area plan, which allows 10 units to the acre and additional density based on architectural and site design. This matter was scheduled to be heard by council in December of last year based on discussions with leadership in the administration and council. I took it back through the approvals process. But in December, when this was to have been heard, over the last 4 years, we reduced our original density from 17.4 units to the acre to 12, a reduction of 130 units. We eliminated all 3-story buildings and replaced them with 2-story buildings. We eliminated all 3-bedroom units and have only 1- and 2-bedroom units. From traffic improvements to McNaughton Road, a clarification. We are obligated to pay for and install a 135-foot southbound left-hand turn lane into our site. That is totally independent, although probably within the scope of work for what the city is planning from Gantz Road south. But that turn lane will be built, and it will provide the primary access to this site. In addition to the turn lane, we are committing to build over 1,000 lineal feet of sidewalk. That's 1,000 lineal feet of sidewalk that the city will not have to build with their future grant money from MORPC and other sites. Also, we designed this site in conjunction with Parks and Recs. We found a 6-acre green space to enable them to have a very substantial tree preserve. And also the materials. We agreed to top shelf materials, stone, stucco, cementitious siding, no vinyl siding. We committed to a landscape plan. We relocated our access, both emergency and primary, at the request of the Division of Fire. Despite all of these concessions, when it was here in December, I had a negative recommendation of 1 to 6 from the commission and a negative recommendation of 2 to 3 from the Development Commission. So we rolled up our sleeves and we went back. We made an amendment, and to clarify, the text says that a minimum of 20% would be workforce housing. It actually will be 30%, which equates to the 90 units mentioned by the chair. A very significant change that addresses the need for affordable workforce housing. We also, when we went back, negotiated to actually provide security gates both at the front and side entrances that require key card access. We also agreed to limit all construction traffic in our residential neighborhood to the south and have it all come in off McNaughton Road. We also agreed to put a board-on-board fence around this entire development. Based on that, the Area Commission vote was 3 to 3, and the Development Commission vote was 5 to 2. The only condition that we did not meet this last time was they asked us to go down to 10 units per acre, consistent with the plan. Having already sacrificed 130 units, we felt that inappropriate. Plus, there is provision in the C2, P2, and the area plan to allow for this additional density. Throughout this 5-year process, we have been respectful to our neighbors. We've been respectful to the process, and we respectfully ask for your passage of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Any questions from council members for the applicant at this time? Councilmember Green?
Mr. Shannon, I just have one question for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about the reduction from 3 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms and how
Certainly.
that came about?
The first side that Shannon Pine showed that had 192 units, the vast majority of those buildings were 3-story. And they accommodated about 15% of our units are close to 45 were going to be 3-bedroom units. They were concerned about them being people packer units. So we agreed to reduce the height of all buildings from 3-story to 2-story. And at the same time, we eliminated the 3-bedroom uses. So they are all now 1- and 2-bedroom uses. These negotiations were a lot of give and take over 4 years. Quite frankly, we did the giving, and in good faith, they did the taking. But we did all of these things to address their concerns, and that was a major issue at the time.
So that was a request that was initiated through the neighborhood negotiation process?
These that I've mentioned
Okay.
have met 24, actually since 2 more, 26 separate and distinct times with the Area Commission and their negotiating arm in the last 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Any other questions from council members for the applicant? Mr. Shannon, just to be clear, so again, when you went back, so this project was originally voted against at the Development Commission. When you went back this past year, they approved the proposal that's before council then?
By a vote of 5 to 2.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember
Mr.
Banks.
Chair, if you can just, I know you said there was a tie vote at the Area Commission, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it wasn't a unanimous no vote?
No.
Got it.
I've had several votes there. Several were 0 to 7.
But the most recent one was a tie?
This one was a 3 to 3 tie.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. We will move on to the public speaker portion of this piece of legislation. We have 3 public speakers to sign up to speak on the ordinance and also a area commissioner. So we'll have 4 total speakers. The first speaker to come before council is Ms. Jennifer Chamberlain, Chair of the Far East Area Commission. Ms. Chamberlain? Welcome back to council.
Good evening, Council President Hardin, Council Pro Tem Dorans, and City Council. I would like to see if I could ask everybody behind me who is in opposition to this project to please stand and wave. I just wanted council to see how many people are here tonight to support the community. Thank you. I'm representing the Far East Area Commission, and tonight our commission is concerned with only one thing: the safety of all who reside and drive along McNaughton Road. In 1998, City Council paid for a comprehensive study of McNaughton Road. With this engineering study, it went from East Broad Street to Livingston. The results of the study cited increasing traffic volumes and safety were major problems. The solutions, as mentioned before, included widening to 5 lanes, additional turn lanes, sidewalks on both sides, and right-of-way for roadway improvements. The logistics of the road pretty much made this impossible. The City of Columbus implemented none of them, and in 2019, an 11-year-old girl was struck and killed by not just one, but multiple vehicles while walking to the bus stop. It is the responsibility of this city to ensure the safety of its streets and the residents, and in this case, failed to do so. The Commission has grave concerns about loading McNaughton Road. This road is a unique community of multiple neighborhoods. And with this, I know that it was said earlier in meetings that you've seen the same condition in multiple parts of the city. Well, here we have 14 out of 16 communities that would only have one means of egress out of their communities and onto a road that has already been under a traffic study by the City of Columbus as a major problem of safety and traffic. Through overlays, the first phase of Zone In focused on the corridors. The purpose of the corridors was not to load the neighborhoods. That is what we are told in multiple meetings, both at our commission and downtown at the gallery. But that is exactly what will occur here. Your traffic study that you paid for showed that this road was not safe. I would like to also say that the land that is across from Mount Carmel on Broad Street, none of it was included in Phase 1 of Zone In. Going down the road a little bit further, both ends of No Bixby are not included in Phase 1 of Zone In. When I asked why it wasn't, it was an oversight. It is paramount that if you want to address the housing crisis, then you need to make sure that the controlling mechanisms, the roads, are safe, and that this will not impact dramatically the communities and neighborhoods. If City Council needs to force this development into the community as the community stands opposed, then the city as well as City Council has failed this community, and the money from income is more important than safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. The next speaker to come for council is Mr. Bill Nairo. Mr. Nairo, welcome back to council, sir.
Good evening, City Council. I bring you greetings from the approximate 6,000 citizens along the McNaughton Road. I am William Nyrote. My wife and I live at 6300 Kinder Edgeway, part of the reserve at McNaughton. The rear of our property butts up to the proposed development. I would also want you to know that we did not receive a notice of a variance should it get that far. Approval of the 198 McNaughton Road development rezoning with the proposed 296-unit apartments is both unwanted and dangerous. The 1998 Comprehensive Traffic Study determined McNaughton Road ought to be a 5-lane north-south corridor from Livingston Avenue to Broad Street. It remains a 2-lane road. For many of my neighbors, McNaughton Road is the only access road to their homes. In addition to the residents and businesses using the road, this road is used by the Central Ohio Transit Authority buses and both the Columbus and Reynoldsburg school buses. Tragically, as mentioned, one little girl was struck and killed by traffic on this busy road. I've seen traffic backed up regularly to the Old Orchard entrance from Main Street and to the Columbus Firehouse number 5 on Broad Street. Both of those intersections, McNaughton and Main and McNaughton and Broad, are two of the most dangerous intersections in Columbus. I am keenly aware of the Columbus Fire Station number 5 on McNaughton Road, directly across from the proposed development. As a son and grandson of a firefighter and captain of the Columbus Fire Department, I would encourage you to see what I see. Currently, the firehouse is subject to the heavy traffic on the 2-lane McNaughton Road. Over 5,300 runs were made in the last 6 months with an engine truck, ladder truck, medic, EMS, and battalion chief vehicles. Increasing the traffic with the 296 unit apartments will compromise the response time and the safety of those firefighters who risk their lives for us. Not only the firefighters, but anyone else using McNaughton Road. There are places along McNaughton Road where you can't pull over for emergency vehicles without going into a ditch. McNaughton Road is also the primary entrance to Mount Carmel East Hospital's emergency and trauma units. There's a steady flow of emergency vehicles coming from Columbus Fire Station 5, 21, 23, and 35, in addition to squads coming from Turo Township in Reynoldsburg, squads coming from Fairfield County, and squads coming from Licking County. Approval of this proposed development would bring even more traffic with unreasonable risk to residents and all citizens using McNaughton Road. Therefore, I ask you to vote no on this unwanted and dangerous proposal, rezoning in development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nairo. The next speaker to come for council is Ms. Colleen Nissel. Ms. Nissel, welcome back to council.
Good evening, council members. My name is Colleen Nissel, representing the Coalition of Neighborhoods bordering McNaughton Road, all of whom, many here tonight, as you've heard, strongly object to this zoning proposal and any others that are coming down the pike. I live in McNaughton's house. It's 200 years old. It has a ditch of about 4 feet on the side of the road. That ditch absolutely goes from Broad to Main on both sides of the road. What you've heard about the AEP putting in steel poles, that goes on the west side. There are 70 homes that have less than 30 feet to their front door, and they've given AEP 20 feet. So tell me how you're gonna widen a road that has a huge ditch and then reposition, according to someone in the audience, those poles. They're not gonna reposition those poles. That's just futile thinking. Let's start with undisputed facts. There has been traditionally, as you know, a very different, obviously rural setting, which matches the character of the road. 2-lane country road, no lights, no sidewalks, deep drainage ditches, all bordering the road. And it's being impacted, as I said, on the western edge by AEP. It has a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, totally ignored. There are, as you've heard, 40 more cars waiting to drop children off or pick children up at Old Orchard School. There is no crossing. There is no one going 20 miles an hour. You have to be on that road, live on that road to see the impact of what traffic and the lack of safe traffic has on that road. Here's an additional problem. Y'all don't deal with Mount Carmel Hospital. We have to deal with them. The workers exit at 3 p.m. when their shift ends onto McNaughton Road. There are hundreds of cars. There are cars waiting at Main Street, all the way backed up past Old Orchard School to exit to avoid 270 or Broad Street or whatever they're trying to avoid. Yes, we understand 270 and 70 are under construction. Maybe that's what they're trying to avoid, but it still puts safety of McNaughton Road at issue. We've already heard there are over 3,000 individuals who can only get in and out of their places on McNaughton Road. It makes no sense to add another 300 plus cars to that road, even if you mandated that they turn right out of their facility to hit Broad Street. If they're going to put a turn lane in there, it will interfere with the Gantz Road turn lane already. This is not a place where you want to expand through apartments. No Bixby Road and McNaughton Road are the only 2 roads that are between Whitehall and Reynoldsburg. 1,200 apartments being built just a mile and a half down the road in Whitehall, and another 1,000 already built in Reynoldsburg. We don't need them. Let's not be myopic. We, as homeowners, pay property tax, and we also pay personal income tax. Let's not ignore the property tax angle here when our school systems are in desperate need of what we provide for them. Thank you.
The final speaker to come for council on this ordinance is Ms. Lee Cole. Welcome back to council.
Good evening, Council President Harden, Pro Tem Dorrance, and Columbus City Council. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. We certainly do not envy the task that is placed before you. As you've heard, the residents of McNaughton Road have spoke passionately about our community. As you know, the McNaughton Road corridor presents a unique set of logistic, infrastructure, and safety concerns. I will focus on three. One, there are more than 2,500 residents with only one access in and out of McNaughton Road. The McNaughton Road community is primarily comprised of cul-de-sacs. Two, infrastructure. McNaughton is a 2-lane road with drainage ditches, 1 traffic light for 1.5 miles, and no sidewalks. Why is this significant? Simply put, it's ill-equipped to handle the volumes of traffic being forced on that small road. Two, children and residents can cross the street only by the grace of oncoming traffic. We do not have traffic lights. And finally, housing. The proposed developments and hundreds of other like it in the city don't resolve the root of affordable housing. Projects and others like this is a one-size-fits-all solution of apartments. The city needs the housing mix. That's single-family, multifamily, and apartments to provide opportunities for every resident. For years, Council's mantra has been, if it's not for all, then it's not for us. This proposed development is for them. Outside developers seeking to profit on the toils, the triumphs, and the sacrifices of generations of Columbus residents. We are the reason why the companies are coming to Columbus. It is what we have built, the people who have actually invested in Columbus. We are the hundreds of Columbus residents who have come to these halls annually, who not only pay our taxes, but has created Columbus to be the best place to live, work, and raise a family. They bring their outside experts in, they come in, they do studies for a few hours, and they leave. I'll ask you this. When you go to the doctor's office and you tell them what's ailing you, why do you answer these questions? Because you know your body. You won't leave until he or she listens. The people in this room, we are the body of Columbus, and we're asking you to listen to us. No one knows our community like we do. No one knows because we are in the trenches every day at 1 p.m., at 1 a.m. No one knows this community, the impact that this potential development can have on us like us. What we're asking you to do is listen to us, feel it in your bones, and understand the impact that we have on our community. We want you to invest in solutions that work for all of us. We're asking you to demand more of your developers and demand that they supply the housing mix that is single family, multifamily, and apartments. This is what we need. Give the residents of Columbus the opportunity to not only invest in us personally, but also invest in our community. Create down payment assistance programs for people who work full-time but make 75 to 200% of federal poverty level. Invest in financial institutions such as Huntington, Adelphi, CME, and Tel Ohio credit unions to create down payment assistance programs that forgive parts of their mortgages for city employees and Columbus City school employees who work full-time but also are at the federal poverty level. You can target specific groups like custodians, firefighters, and police. Invest in the people who work here, who live here, and who also play here and invest their children here. Constantly demand for your developers to give more. We need the entire life cycle of housing, not simply apartments, but again, multifamily, single family, and apartments to provide a long-term solution for the city of Columbus that invests in all of us. Because again, as you all have stated, if it's not for all, then it's not for us. Thank you.
At this time, I would ask the applicant to come back forward to make any comments regarding the public speakers.
Mr. President, Chairman Dorns, members of council, I obviously don't want to be dismissive of our neighbors' concerns. They are sincere, they are heartfelt, and they believe it from the bottom of their heart that because they live in owner-occupied units, they're on cul-de-sacs, that a rental development of this magnitude will be an intrusion into their daily life. I understand that they believe that passionately. But with all due respect to them, I think we need to understand the housing crisis that we're going through. It is absolutely unprecedented. And when you look at your area plan that says 10 units to the acre plus a bonus for architecture and site plan, if we could go to a zoning map, if that's possible, I think it's important to note that all of Broad Street is an employment corridor in this area plan. And as you go north of our site, that's perfect. As you go north of our site, you see the two sites that are in orange. One is zoned AR12, and the one closer to Broad and McNaughton is zoned ARLD, which is 17.4 units to the acre. Now, we're spending a lot of time of getting rid of our 1959 zoning code, but that tract at 17.4 units to the acre was rezoned in 1970 under the old zoning code for ARLD. ARLD stands for Apartment Residential Low Density. Even in 1959, 17.4 units to the acre was considered low density. And why would they approve a density of that magnitude? It probably has to do with the 2 million square foot building that's directly across the street on Broad Street that was formerly Western Electric, and according to news reports, is going to be redeveloped in the immediate future. Now, I've had the distinct pleasure of appearing in these council chambers for 41 years. And thanks to a guy named Bob Weiler, I've been teaching a law class pro bono at Capitol and Land Use for the last 33 years. And the most fundamental thing that I tell young law students about zoning is you regulate the use and not the user. You regulate the use and not the user. And one of my failed attempts at Development Commission, where I lost by one vote, that one vote looked me straight in the eye and said, I heard what you said about regulating the use being proper for zoning, but this time I agree with the neighbors, you need to regulate the user. It doesn't do any good to spend millions of dollars changing the zoning code if we don't change people's attitudes. Zoning for market rate and affordable housing. Affordable housing and market rate housing is an infrastructure need in this city. It's not an add-on. Again, I respect my neighbors. I've lived on the east side my entire life. I've had the good fortune to hold public office and serve as a council member and as a city attorney. So I know the dilemma that you face. But when it gets right down to it, zoning is the exercise of this city's police powers. If you make a determination that this project is in the public safety, health, and welfare of your constituents, you probably ought to support it. If you think this development is going to be so detrimental that it will adversely affect the public safety, health, and welfare of the existing residents, then you'd be duty-bound by your oath of office to turn it down. I respectfully submit to this august body that we have a crisis afoot. This is a reasonable zoning. It's been negotiated over a 4-year period. We have given until we can't give anymore. As far as I'm concerned, this should be the poster child for your new tax abatement program, because but for that abatement, this project would not go forward. That's the common goal of the administration and this body politic, and we think we can help you get there. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Questions from council members? Councilmember Bankston?
I just have a clarifying question, just to kind of set some context here. Because what we're talking about.
Councilmember Bankston, can you?
Because, okay. There you go. There you go. So what we're talking about is 46 units. Because, so what we're talking about, let me set the stage, and I'm talking to, is we're talking about 46 units.
48.
Because at 48 units. Because as is, you can build 10 units per acre as it sits without coming here at all, right? So that's 10 times 25 acres.
Councilmember,
That's
just to
250.
clarify, that would be the land use recommendation for that area. They would still need to be here for the rezoning.
Right, but what I'm saying is in my private meetings with the area commission, they have said to me that they would accept 10 acres.
Sure.
I mean, 10 units per acre.
Yes, sir.
And that is able to go up to that. Matter of fact, what was told to me is that at one point in time, you were trying to get to 10 acres and they would have approved it. So again, we're talking about 48 units. Now let's do a different scenario. Where say we get to 250 units or 10 units per acre. Could you magically make them all 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom units, but they would still be in that 10 unit per acre lot if you wanted to?
I think that would be bastardizing the system, but it is achievable if you want to put people packers in there and put in 4-bedroom units. It could be achieved.
Right.
But it's not what workforce housing is all about.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is that we are talking about a difference of 48 units.
That's correct.
Because again, the area commission, who is the body that represents this area, was willing to do 10 units per acre. So I just want to put that in context for folks.
Right.
That regardless if this came here tonight, there was a scenario that this would have been built and approved by the area commission at 250 units
Correct.
on this particular development.
With no affordable housing.
And when we're talking about the traffic, we are making substantial investments to McNaughton, to put in turn lanes, to put in the sidewalk and multi-use paths, all the things that we say that are about safety. So all the things that we want out of a developer, all the things that we say that we want invested on this particular street is happening. And yes, I agree, we do need a mix of single-family, multifamily housing. And particularly in a neighborhood that is dominated by single-family housing, we need some more multifamily housing. And so for me, I want to be clear, I live in Northeast Columbus. I live in McCutcheon Crossing. McCutcheon is a 2-lane road. Before my neighborhood was developed there, before any of the apartments on Stelter Road, it was all farms and tree land and trees. Also, to get to my home, you have to go through Cassidy. It's a 2-lane road as well. Is there traffic? Absolutely. At Cassidy Elementary School, I won't want to be caught dead there between 3 and 4. But guess what? It happens from 3 and 4. On my way to work, if I'm running late because that's my fault, yes, there's traffic at Cassidy and turning on to 670. But guess what? Our city is growing. And that is the pain points that we have to have. But for development, would we not be able to get center turn lanes and multi-use paths and sidewalks and all the things that we have been asking for in this corridor for a long time? So I just want to point out the point that the argument here that we're talking about is 48 units. Because 250 was the number that this community was willing to settle on and to be happy with. So thank you.
Councilman.
Your area commission said it. So.
Councilmember Rosa de Padilla. Excuse me.
I just wanted to make
council members are asking questions right now. Excuse me.
I just wanted to
Councilmember
make
Rosa de Padilla.
I just wanted to make 2 points of clarification. They're not to you, Mr. Shannon. I just wanted to go back. The roadway improvements that we're making to McNaughton would happen whether this development went through or not. Is that correct, Director?
That is correct.
So the shared use path, the additional turn lanes, flashing beacons for pedestrians would happen whether this development is going in or not, because whether this development was going in or not, the Department of Public Service was going to make these investments into McNaughton. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Additionally, I want to ensure, oh, did I lose it? My other question. Oh, can we go back to this? There's been a 1998 study that has been cited several times about what McNaughton should be. Can you tell us just a little bit? Would there ever be, I mean, obviously we know the answer to this, but I just want to ensure there's not a possibility that McNaughton could be a 5-lane road?
At this point in time, no.
No. The widening of the road, when we're talking about a shared use path, is that as far as we could go on McNaughton in terms of roadway widening?
No, we could widen it. It would take out a lot of homes. But today, with the current traffic volumes, it wouldn't warrant a 5-lane road.
So I understand that folks want to react. I'm asking the questions for clarification so that we're all on the same page and we're working from the same set of facts. The fact that I'm trying to make is that whether or not this development would go through, there would be improvements along McNaughton. I'm also just pointing out that there was not a scenario. I'm not sure who was around in 1998. I'm not sure who made those decisions. Engineers, I'm not sure who the engineers were who made that decision. But what I'm saying is that we're knowing that that is not an opportunity for us, knowing that we have certain limitations, we are already making these safety improvements. That is the point that I want to make. It is factual. That is what it is. Folks can agree with it or not. I was in a meeting that said, we just a second ago honored a public servant who had worked at the city of Columbus for 20-some years, 26, 28 years, that this is the work that they're doing. That is factual, and I wanted to ensure that as the residents that care about this street, and that's what you're here fighting for, I wanted to ensure that you knew what was happening along the street and along the corridor. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments from council members at this time? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shannon. So I think we've talked a lot about different parts of the housing continuum in Columbus. I think it would be surprising for folks to hear that 80% of the city of Columbus is zoned for single-family housing. 80%. When we're talking about the growth that Columbus is experiencing, we're talking about needing 200,000 housing units over the next 10 years to keep pace with our population growth. You can't get there with just single-family housing. That's why we need to look at ways to bring different types of housing in every different neighborhood in the city. It is disappointing to hear folks come up to a podium and say, no development, nothing new in my neighborhood. I understand that change is scary. I understand change is different for folks when they've invested in their neighborhood. But change is coming to Columbus one way or the other. I know many of the folks that are in this room right now were in this room in late last year when this council considered another ordinance for rezoning on McNaughton. This council turned that zoning down. And the reason we turned that down was the infrastructure improvements that we're talking about here today were not on the table to support that project. Meaning, when this council looks at projects about whether or not we think that infrastructure can support them, we take a critical eye to the point where we turn down a project on this road. When we talk about tens of millions of dollars going towards infrastructure improvements specifically in this area, because we know these issues have been occurring for a very long time, and these investments are desperately needed, that changes the calculus for me compared to when I voted no on that ordinance late last year, compared to supporting the one here in front of us tonight. Folks can reasonably disagree about where we're at as far as investments go and how do we support those kinds of things within neighborhoods. But bottom line, our city is growing. Bottom line, our city needs more housing. And right now, we have an application that has been with council for nearly 5 years that has seen change after change after change in order to bring it here tonight. This isn't, if council just wanted to throw this on the agenda, that would have happened back in 2019 when I first joined city council. So I want to thank folks that have been engaged in this process. I want to thank the Area Commission. I know folks may not like to hear that tonight, but you have made this project better for us to bring it here for a vote tonight. And ultimately, the reason that I'm going to be casting a yes vote on this project is simply because we have been able to identify key improvements. Will these be perfect? No. No infrastructure improvement is perfect. But these are real improvements that are coming to this area because of the population growth that we're experiencing. And with that, I move for passage by voice.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bangston? Ms. Barosa de Padilla?
Yes.
Ms. Day Akauer?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Green? Mr. Remy?
No.
Mr. White?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes, ordinance is passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance number 1706-2024 to amend ordinance number 1752, passed April 2nd, 1990, for the property located at 3700 Fishinger Boulevard by repealing sections number 1 and 3 and replacing with a new section 1 and 3 to include the legal description for the specific property to modify permissible uses of said property with the sub-area 6 CPD Commercial Plan Development District. This ordinance modifies the permissible use for parcel 506-294246 with sub-area 6 of gaming rooms accessory to equipment sporting uses. All other sections of ordinance number 1752-90 remain unchanged. This proposal has approval from city staff and the West Side Area Commission. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Developers build, they sell, they line their pockets, and they walk away with zero responsibility to our community.
Is there a second?
Is there?
Clerk, please call the roll.
Clerk? Call the roll.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Pass.
Pass.
Next, we have ordinance number 1709-2024 to amend ordinance number 0760-2003, passed June 30th, 2003, by repealing section 3 and replacing with the new section 3, thereby modifying the setbacks and site plan of LM Limited Manufacturing District for the property located at 2591 Johnstown Road. This legislation will amend ordinance number 0760 by modifying the limitation text to permit new building and storage setbacks and commit to a revised site plan. No other changes are proposed, and all other aspects of ordinance number 0769-2023 remain in effect or are included in this amendment. The proposal has approvals from city staff, and there is no area commission in this section of the city. The East Columbus Civic Association was unanimous as well. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance number 1733-2024 to rezone 3375 Refugee Road, being 6.0 plus acres located on the south side of Refugee Road, being 465 plus feet west of Weyburn Road from R Rural District to LM Limited Manufacturing District. The site consists of one undeveloped parcel, and the requested zoning will allow the site to be developed with limited commercial and less objectionable manufacturing uses. A concurrent council variance will be considered further down our agenda tonight. The proposal has approved from city staff, Development Commission, and the Mid-East Area Commission. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we move on to the council variances portion of the agenda. First, we have 0273-2024, granted variance provisions of section 3333.18 building lines of the Columbus City Code for property located at 198 McNaughton Drive to allow reduced building line for an apartment complex in the LAR 12 limited apartment residential district. This is a companion variance to the rezoning we previously heard on our agenda this evening. Once again, the applicant has received approval from city staff and the Development Commission on the rezoning to allow for a 296-unit apartment complex. This request includes a variance to reduce the required building lines on McNaught Road. Due to the tie vote from the resulting disapproval from the Far East Area Commission, we'll now hear a staff report for the Department of Building and Zoning Services. Ms. Pine, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Dorans and members of council. The requested council variance is concurrent to the LARLD limited district rezoning request and will allow a reduction in the required building line from McNaughton Road as stated by Chair Dorans. The reduction allows for a more pedestrian-friendly development pattern with buildings closer to the streets and sidewalks and parking hidden by being placed behind the buildings. This is consistent with the recent development trends for apartment complexes as desired by C2P2 design guidelines. Staff supports the requested variance, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. Any questions from council members for the department at this time? Seeing none, I invite the applicant to speak directly to the variance on this piece of legislation. Mr. Shannon, I need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer the
Stanley, can you shut the door, please?
Pains of perjury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, President Harden. Normally, when you have a council variance, it's a use variance and you need a hardship. This is a development standard variance, merely a setback. That requires merely a practical difficulty. We meet the statutory requirement for the granting of this based on that and the Duncan factors, and I respectfully request your approval of same.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Any questions from my colleagues specific to the variance? Seeing none, I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit by voice.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bangston? Ms. Barosa de Padilla? Ms. De Akauer? Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Remy? Mr. White? President Harden?
Yes.
Thank you. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council by voice.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bangston? Ms. Barosa de Padilla? Ms. De Akauer? Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Green? Mr. Remy? Mr. White? President Harden?
Yes, adopted.
Thank you. And finally, I move for passage by voice.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bangston? Ms. Barosa de Padilla? Ms. De Akauer? Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Green? Mr. Remy? Mr. White? President Harden?
Yes, pass.
Thank you.
For your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Next, we have ordinance number 1700-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.035 R3 Residential District, 3312.273 Parking Setback Line, 3332.05A4 Area District Lot Width Requirements, 3332.22A2 Building Lines and Corner Lots Exceptions of the Columbus City Code to property located at 1480-1420 Republic Avenue to allow 2-unit dwelling with reduced development standards in the R3 Residential District. The site consists of one undeveloped parcel, and the requested council variance will allow a 2-unit dwelling to be constructed on the property. The variance is required because the current zoning code does not allow for 2-unit dwellings on one lot. The proposal has approval from city staff and the North Linden Area Commission. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Pass.
Thank you. And next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Adopted.
Thank you. I finally move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 1727-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.035 R3 Residential District, 3312.49 required parking, and 3321.05 B1 vision clearance, 3332.05 area district lot width requirements, 3332.13 R3 area district lot width requirements, 3332.21 building lines, and 3332.26 minimum side yard permitted at the Columbus City Code to property located at 678 Miller Avenue to allow mixed use development, reduced development standards in the R3 Residential District. The site is currently developed with a 1,000 square foot commercial building, and the applicant proposes to expand the existing commercial structure, resulting in a total of 2,000 square feet of eating and drinking establishment space on the first floor, with one dwelling unit on the second and third floor. The council variance is required because the current district does not allow for commercial uses and only allows for one single unit dwelling as a principal residential use. The proposal has approved from city staff and the Livingston Avenue Area Commission. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Accept it.
Thank you. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Adopt it.
Thank you. And finally, move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 1734-2024 to grant a variance and provisions of section 3363.41A storage of Columbus City Codes for property located at 3375 Refugee Road to allow reduced outdoor storage setback in the LM Manufacturing District. This companion variance to a rezoning we considered earlier in our agenda tonight to allow limited commercial and less objectionable manufacturing uses. The requested variance will allow reduced separation of outdoor storage from the residential district. The proposal has approvals from city staff and the Mid-East Area Commission. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to accept the staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Accept it.
Thank you. And next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Akauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden?
Accept it.
Thank you. And finally, move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White. President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 1736-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3356.03 C4 permitted uses, 3356.05 F12, C4 district development limitation, 3312.09 aisle, 3312.13 driveway, 3312.29 parking space, 3312.49 required parking, 33215A1 vision clearance, 3325.213 fair standards, 3325.223 building height standards, and 3325.241D building design standards, Columbus City Codes for property located at 200 East Fifth Avenue to allow multi-unit residential development with reduced development standards in the C4 commercial district. This site consists of 6 parcels developed with commercial uses and is subject to the neighborhood commercial subarea and the University District zoning overlay. The applicant proposes a mixed-use development containing 186 apartments with 37 units being deemed affordable. 10% of the units will be offered at 80% of the area median income and 10% at 100% median income. For a single person, that's $55,550 to $69,416 per year, and $79,350 to $99,182 per year for a family of 4. So once again, we're talking about teachers, construction workers, registered nurses, entry-level police and firefighters, as just examples, some of the occupations that make that salary here in Columbus. There's also a 4,000 square foot of retail space, both with surface and structured parking. The requested council variance will allow residential use on the ground floor of a building that are otherwise prohibited. The proposal has approval from city staff, the University Area Commission Zoning Committee, but a 5-7 disapproval from the full commission. Due to that disapproval, we'll now hear a presentation from city staff before we have the applicant. Chief Zoning Official Pine, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. The requested council variance will allow a mixed-use project similar in scale, height, and density to projects previously approved by City Council or the Board of Zoning Adjustment along the north side of East Fifth Avenue. Area A along East Fifth Avenue contains the commercial component along with apartment units and 15 parking spaces, and Area B along North 4th Street contains 119 structured parking spaces and apartment units. Additional variances to reduce driveway width, parking space width, required parking, vision clearance, FAR standards, and building design standards, and to increase the building height are included in this request, noting that the required parking for the project is being provided over the 2 sub-areas. The site is located within the planning boundary of the University District Plan, which recommends neighborhood mixed use, which is consistent with the proposed uses. The site is proposed in Phase 1 of Zone N as the UCT Urban Center District. The proposed building height meets the height requirements of that district with the affordability height bonus. Staff supports the requested variances for these reasons, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. Any questions from council members at this time? Please note that both traffic, housing, and planning are also prepared to present, but I'll wait and see if there's a question from one of the council members at this point to see if we need those presentations. This time, I would invite Mr. Dave Perry up as a representative for the applicant. And Mr. Perry, if you could introduce your colleague as well so I can swear you both in.
Better? I think even better.
Good evening, President Harden.
Mr. I'm going to swear you in real quick, and if you could have your
swear in.
colleague introduce himself for the record as well.
Good evening. My name is Michael Panzica. I'm the owner of M. Panzica Development, the lead developer on this project.
Great. If you both wouldn't mind raising your right hand, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Floor is yours.
Great. Good evening, President Harden, Zoning Chair Dorans, and all council members. My name is Dave Perry. I'm here as agent for M. Panzica Development, and as we've already done the introduction, Mr. Panzica is with me. Also, the development proposal is as stated by staff and Mr. Dorans. I'm going to jump to major changes in this project since early May. The site is designated in Zone N as UCT, Urban Center, and that district will permit the height, the ground level residential use, and other aspects of this project that are currently variance requirements. But not all the variances will be permitted by Zone N. There are certain aspects of the project, as are typical, for example, with structured parking garages where there are minor differences in parking space width, in the aisles, there's minor differences in the driveway widths from the city code and so on. That will also be addressed by this variance. Since early May, the project has committed to providing affordable housing units. The site is located in the Wineland Park CRA area, and it is designated as ready for opportunity. Mr. Panzika has committed to providing the 10% at 80% and 10% at 100% units. Secondly, a major concern of Hamlet Street residents was that this project has a direct outlet to East Fifth Avenue. It did not prior to that, but Mr. Panzika and I and the project engineers went to work with the city staff on how can we make a driveway to Fifth Avenue work. That has resulted in a driveway on Area A, the parcel that is between Fifth Avenue and the alley north, that will provide access for that site, and Area B across the alley for a driveway directly to East Fifth Avenue. That is an obligation of this ordinance by the site plan. And third, there has been considerable ongoing discussion with Mr. Panzika and Hamlet Street residents about aspects of the project and commitments to it and so on, that has resulted in a petition sent to the council clerk this afternoon with 30 signatures, 26 of whom are on Hamlet Street, property owners on Hamlet Street, petition of 30 signatures in support of the project. So I believe you have that petition, so I won't read from it. This is a $60 million construction project. Mr. Panzika has been working on this for over a year, and there are timing aspects, of course, with a project of this scale, and we are happy to answer any questions, but otherwise request your support on the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Is there any questions from council members for the applicant or their agent at this time? Seeing none, thank you. We did have 2 public speaker slips signed up to speak in support of this ordinance. One of those speaker slips was withdrawn as that person did not qualify as an impacted party pursuant to the advice from the city attorney's office. We do have a university area commissioner here with us, Ms. Doreen U.S. Sauer. Ms. Doreen, welcome back to council. I love the Midwestern politeness back there. Nice to see that still on display tonight. Mr. Doreen, I'm going to swear you in real quick.
Good evening.
Mr. Doreen, if I can swear you in real quick, if you could raise your right hand. I have to swear you in real quick since it's a variance. Yeah, sorry. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer in a pains and penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
Yes.
The floor is yours, ma'am.
President Harden, Chair of Zoning, Rob Dorans, and honorable members of City Council. I'm here tonight to really sort of represent myself, what I saw, opinions, and to try to give you some insight as to the difference between what the Zoning Committee code, the Zoning Committee's recommendation was, and the University Area Commission a month later, what their recommendation was, and why they seem to be so different. I have prepared comments, but I also have a hemorrhage in my retina, and even if I had used this the size of a billboard font, I couldn't read my own comments tonight, so I will cut to the chase and try to give you some of the background on this. We have been actually dealing with this on the Area Commission since earlier in the year. I want to reaffirm everything that Dave Perry has said up until now. We've had actually a very good conversations, and I would have to say that even the people who were in opposition to the project have all referenced the workability of the developer with them, and a bit very respectful of the fact that in working through some of the issues of the traffic, the proximity of Wyland Park School, the neighborhood's residents that are immediately behind the project, they certainly have been very much a model of trying to find some common ground. As the oldest area commission in the city, I just want to remind you, we do not see ourselves as a Clintonville nor a Short North. We are the ones who manage change. Despite the many partnerships, we are often guided by the plethora of institutions that surround us that provide both challenges at times in employment and partnerships on others. So we take grassroots commentary very seriously, whether it was from a university, a hospital, or the neighborhood residents. In working through many of the early issues and coming to the zoning committee did note that there was some opposition, but these issues were still being worked on, and some of them revolved around the height of the building at 7 stories. And there was also discussion on the part of the neighborhood that they would be more accommodating for 7 stories if indeed the developer could reduce to 5 or 6. And there was discussion by them of stepping down that which faced the neighborhood. So when the zoning committee met, what we did was had a very open discussion about the affordability, about the Community Reinvestment Act. There was a good deal of dialogue. There was one couple who arrived late after the vote had been taken, which was unanimous at that point, to pass this on to the entire UAC. And we assured them that if they could make the next meeting for the Area Commission or send in what they were thinking, we would certainly listen, and they promised they would, and they did come indeed. When we had our June meeting, it was originally scheduled for Juneteenth, and so we moved the date to Tuesday off of the Wednesday we normally meet. And by the time we started that meeting, we did have quorum at 11 people, and there was a great flood of letters that were coming in, letters and speakers, so that the total combined number of people who were in support, either by speaking or a letter or counted as one, whether they did both or not, were 13, and those that were in opposition, whether it was by sending a letter or speaking, were 9. And when I say that, I want you to know, of course, that was really by household address, not necessarily numbers of people within a household reflecting perhaps, a husband and wife, a difference. The conversation began to turn on the question that you've already heard tonight on many of other cases, and that was about affordability. So for those people who attended the zoning committee, it was very apparent that we all operate under constraints, whether they're time, whether it was about certainly things the developer had to worry about constraints, but it's also about how the neighborhood was thinking about affordability. And the neighborhood had really, many of them had really expressed the same thing. They would certainly consider 7 stories if more affordability could be offered. The mix was a mix we would have loved to have seen on High Street. Studio, 1, 2 bedrooms, places that were small enough and compact enough to accommodate graduate students or family, much more diverse than what we normally were seeing with 5 and 6 bedroom apartments where it's per bed $1,500 to $1,800 a month. So that affordability factor increased the desire of the neighborhood to not further marginalize what we see all around us. We are a geographically, racially, residentially, certain education-wise, extremely diverse neighborhood. And it's one of those things that we feel that we need to keep very strong when I say we are neither like the surrounding communities near us. This diversity is important to us and was important to the neighborhood. I am mindful of the fact that on times, I believe I have this right, President Hardin, I've heard you say good-headed people are sometimes wrong-headed, or good people are sometimes wrong-headed. And I have really reflected on that in preparation for just coming here to you right now, tonight. This was a close vote. In the very end, the Area Commission, with 11 people there, voted that 6 voted no and 5 voted yes to, and even people who are on the zoning committee may have voted differently than they did on zoning. We had before us people who were bringing issues. I am not in any way excusing them about the density of the area, about the extreme change, the traffic, the height of the building. But what I also started to see was there was some, I wouldn't say confusion, but I would say these were good people who voted both yes and no, whose primary concern was the one that sticks all of us, and it was about the affordability. So perhaps the conversation turned on that. This is my opinion, but I hope that it might give you a little bit more insight for what was an extremely close vote, which we pondered later, and I did talk to neighborhood leaders and commissioners both about it, and I believe my conclusion at least is certainly valuable, because I don't believe it was necessarily on one particular issue. That affordability is that common ground for all of us, and it's hard to manage change. We're in the midst of change, as you know, so we do not envy you your position there tonight. If there's anything I can do to add to that, I'm happy to answer it.
Thank you, Ms. Doreen. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla.
Commissioner, I just wanted to say, and I think, I'm not sure if you're here as a commissioner in your personal capacity, but I just wanted to just say thank you. Thank you for the intentionality of thought around what the Area Commission discussed, because I think you're correct on so many points. We should take you on a roadshow. I think thinking about it being in the midst of change is hard, and how it affects us is hard. And being forward thinking and thinking about what that change looks like, especially for the future, I think is important. Understanding our communities and understanding how diverse all of our communities are beyond one road, one street, one area, but how it's all interconnected to the success of the city, I think is really important. And so I just wanted to applaud. I think your commission is known for these kind of discussions. I applaud you for being here and for taking us through kind of the thought process, because I think that's also helpful for us, because I think sometimes there's unilateral decisions that people will make and put a stake in the ground, and it makes it really difficult for us to understand the nuances of the thinking behind the folks who live there sometimes. So again, I just appreciate you sharing all of that with us, even if it is from your perspective, your personal perspective, but as a longtime commissioner and resident of the area, I think it is valued. And so I just wanted to say that I appreciate that.
Thank you. I have to say, I'm extremely proud of a neighborhood who wants more affordability for those who do not fall into the HUD guidelines. But those are the constraints under which we were all looking, and I do believe that that became sort of the crucible of the change in vote.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from Councilmember Ms. Doreen? Thank you so much for being here tonight, and as always, thank you for your service on the University Area Commission. Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. So I think this project, whenever we see a disapproval, I think it's a question of sort of what motivated that. And I think based upon what I've heard, certainly from specific to residents that are on Hamlin Street adjacent, many of the asks have been met by those residents with this applicant. And at this point, I think it's proper to move this project forward, given that those requests have been accommodated by the applicant here. So first, I would move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayal, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
Thank you. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayal, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
Thank you. Next, I move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayal, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
Thank you. And finally, I move for passage as amended.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayal, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
Thank you, Council President. That's all we have in tonight's zoning committee.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayal, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Harden.
A motion to reconvene meeting number 35.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
The next committee to come before council is the Safety Committee chaired by Councilman Remy. Councilman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. And I have one ordinance of public safety and criminal justice. It's 1573, 2024, to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds within the Safety GO Bonds Fund, Fund 7701, to authorize the Finance Management Director to establish purchase orders from an existing purchase agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc. for the purchase of portable radios for the Department of Public Safety, to authorize the expenditure of $2,499,961.83 from the Safety GO Bonds Fund, Fund 7701, and to declare an emergency. The Division of Support Services needs to purchase replacement handheld radios for police and fire sworn personnel for the various recruit classes for both groups and for other public safety personnel. 55% of the Department of Public Safety's radio inventory is 15 to 20 years old, and it is increasingly difficult to locate replacement parts and maintain service support. An existing universal term contract was established by the purchasing office for such purposes with Motorola Solutions, Inc. This ordinance will fund the purchase of new radios and accessories with Motorola via the terms and conditions of the universal term contract established with Motorola. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please in the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you very much, Council President. That is all I have on my committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee come before council is the Sustainability and Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight I have three ordinances on second reading. First, I have 1427-2024 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Claypool Electric, Inc. for the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Plant Southwest Switching Station Switchgear Replacement Project, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to appropriate funds within the Sanitary Revolving Loan Fund, to make this ordinance contingent upon the Ohio Water Development Authority approving a loan for this project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $3,271,860 from the Sanitary Revolving Loan Fund and the Sanitary Bond Fund to pay for the project, and to declare an emergency. The switchgear in the southwest switching station of the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Plant had a catastrophic failure. Some of the switchgear has been temporarily bypassed to allow for continued operation of the plant. This contract will replace the 15 kilovolt switchgear and associated electrical cables to allow the plant to return to normal operations. This project will also upgrade the HVAC system to account for the additional heat load from the new switchgear. This contract was competitively bid according to the city's bidding process. Let me stop there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Next, I have 1446-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to modify the service contract with Bermex, Inc. to provide water meter reading services for the Division of Water, and to authorize the expenditure of $1,250,000 from the Water Operating Fund. While DPU has been working to upgrade the city's metering system since 2018, the enhanced meter project implementation is expected to continue through 2025. The intent of this contract is to bridge the gap between the start of the advanced metering infrastructure implementation and its conclusion. Let me pause there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. And last in my committee, I have 1648-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Travco Construction, Inc. for the lead service line replacement pilot program project, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to authorize a transfer of funds from the Water Reserve Fund to the Water Fresh Water Market Rate Fund, to authorize the appropriation of funds to expend up to $2,502,000 from the Water Fresh Water Market Rate Fund, from the Lead Safe Ohio Grant, and from the Water Bond Fund, and to declare an emergency. While the city excluded lead as an approved material for service lines in 1963, lead service lines currently exist in both the public and private side of the city service lines due to installation prior to the exclusion, endangering public health and safety. On April 29th of this year, this council passed Ordinance 1061-2024, which gave the Division of Water approval to implement a limited lead service line removal pilot program with private property volunteers to be able to incorporate lessons learned into the program manual, rules, and regulations before beginning the main replacement project. This construction contract is anticipated to cost $2.5 million, with the Department of Development grant providing up to $1 million for the private service line replacement, and the Division of Water providing up to $1.5 million for the public line replacement. Let me pause there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. That is all I have from my committee, but President Harden, I do have one code change in Rules and Policy Committee. May I proceed? Please. Thank you. I have 1627-2024 to enact Chapter 1119 of the Columbus City Codes to establish the lead service line replacement program, to declare lead service lines in the public water systems to be a public nuisance, to amend Section 1101.03 of the Columbus City Code, and to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to implement the lead service line replacement program to replace lead and galvanized steel water lines in the city distribution system. This ordinance will declare lead service lines in public water systems to be a public nuisance and enact a new chapter of Columbus City Code, Chapter 1119, to create a lead service line replacement program. This proposed code change is having a public hearing tomorrow in these chambers at 3:30. Therefore, I move to postpone the ordinance until July 15th to allow time for public input.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Postpone.
Thank you. That is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing no further business coming before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned.